Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Londonderry Town Council meeting for today, May 9th, 2022. Would you please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, as is our tradition, would you please remain standing for a moment of silence for all those who put themselves in harm's way to protect this community and protect this country. Thank you. All right, tonight, folks, we usually start with public comment. We'll also be having some public hearings. First item I have on the agenda tonight under public comment is for the town clerk, Sherry Farrell, to follow up on a discussion about town leash issues, dog leash issues.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to start first with presenting Dawn Williams with $1,140. That's going to go to Survivors Paws Animal Rescue League. And they were the nonprofit organization that all the money that we gained from our rabies clinic that was held a few weeks back, we're donating it all to them. So Dawn, if you would come up. Great honor to present you with this. Thank you so much. And just on a little note, volunteerism is down, which is so very sad, but when you have a chance to work with someone like Dawn, who has her own family, but also every aspect of the community, Dawn's kind of that, unsung hero behind the scenes. And when we had our first rabies clinic, she brought in, out of maybe 7 volunteers that we had, Dawn brought 5 from the Animal Rescue League that worked with us for hours for free. So Dawn, I love you very much. Next year 3, so thank you very much, everyone. Tonight, I just wanted to follow up with our discussion from about a month ago about the dog ordinance that we have in town. And a lot of good information has come out of that first presentation. And at that time, Councillor Paul had asked a great question, how many incidents are we talking about here? And it really got me thinking because, what is the number? So I've been working with our deputy chief, Kim Bernard, and we realized, which really shocked both of us, I think, that in a 3-year period, we had just a pinch under 1,500 incidents, calls that came into the police station around concerns with dogs, and incidents dog on dog, dogs with neighbors, involving children, all kinds of different issues. And when you ask that question, I really didn't think we'd be anywhere close to that, and it's a shocking amount. The next follow-up question to that is, well, how many of them actually end up going to court or being pursued? And that's the sad part, because what we're finding is many people call, many people walk into our office with concerns and worries and tears, but then when it comes time to actually pressing charges and, and dealing with the dog, the person, the owner, many people don't want to take that next step because they're worried about retaliation. They're worried about, oh, it's my neighbor, I don't want to cause a problem. And that's why a lot of these aren't making it into the police logs, as you had asked, and into other things. When I was here about a month ago, I kind of had in my mind that idea of a leash ordinance and really having a stronger input on the one that we already have from 2016. But the article in the paper really did help to bring awareness, and I ended up meeting a lovely lady that's with us tonight, Pam Dolan. And Pam and I worked on, what are we really looking for here in an ordinance, in an amendment to an ordinance. And in just a minute, I'm going to ask Pam to come up too and give you her thoughts on it, because the only way we can make this work for everyone is to work as a village so that it's not punishing people that are doing the right things with their dogs, but yet we also have to keep the residents safe. Before I have Pam come up, just so that I don't forget, I just want to mention to everyone out there, please help us to get all of the dogs in town registered. We have over 5,000 dogs now in town, and presently we have about 1,300 that still need to be registered, which isn't bad compared to other communities and to where we've been in the past. But 1,300 dogs still need to be registered. Thanks to a lot of assistance from our police department, people assume that at the end of April, that's the deadline for dog registration, and our penalties start to fall in May. But the reality is the state gives us a grace period of the month of May, which is kind of nice. So come on in, register your dogs, ask your neighbors, help us with this. It's the one way we can keep our residents safe and also the dogs safe if they're lost or stolen. So I just wanted to mention that to you too. But Pam, if you wouldn't mind coming up for a few minutes and giving us your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here simply as a resident of the
I'm
town
sorry,
of
Pam,
Londonderry.
Can we have your name and address for the record, please?
Pamela Dolan Alexander, 176 Pillsbury Road.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I've been a dog owner here since 2009, and I've had the privilege of walking my dog on public land, on conservation land, on the streets. And in appropriate areas, I've been allowed to have my dog off leash, to chase balls, and to play with other dogs. And I've, for the most part, have had no incidents at all. I've always had my dog under voice control, and I hope that going forward, I still have that privilege in town, because I feel that I am a responsible dog owner. When other dogs or their owners approach me and my dog, I always put my dog on a leash, and I'm respectful of their privacy and their safety. But on the flip side, I've also had my dog attacked by other dogs when walking down the streets. My dog's been attacked by many dogs, either leaving their yards or breaking away from their owners as they're walking on the opposite side of the street. And so I know how that feels. I know that that is not a good thing. My dog got hurt. And I've also witnessed my neighbor and her dog being attacked on their own property by another dog. And my neighbor had her dog in her arms, and the dog broke free from the handler, ran up to her, bit her dog. There were hospital bills, there were vet bills. And my neighbor did not want to call the police. She did not want to press charges because it was her neighbor, and she did not want to cause problems. And she tried to bring the neighbor the bill, and she refused the bill. And she told me specifically that she regrets not following through with the police because she feels that dog could do it again, and that that dog could possibly harm a child or another person. So in the long run, she feels that she should have done that, but because it was a neighbor and she's a little intimidated, she never came forward. So I see both sides of the issue. So I hope that we don't punish responsible dog owners. I hope we educate and inform the public. There's a lot more dog owners now since COVID, so obviously we see that in the numbers going up, and I think that it would be proactive of us as a town to make sure that we establish some kind of a protocol when we handle our dogs, or a dog etiquette, and we inform the public of that, and hopefully these incidents improve or stop happening. And that's it. Thank you for your time.
Do you have
Thank
any
you.
questions for us?
Mr. Chair.
Council, questions? Yes?
I just want to say thank you for advocating for and seeing both sides. I
Yep.
think it takes a level of discernment to see that, and for advocating for your neighbor. I really commend that. So thank you
Oh,
for
you're welcome.
sharing
You're
that.
welcome.
Anything else?
Questions?
I have a question, Sherry. Thank you, John. What do you think of the next steps? I mean, you're talking about this,
Yes,
and
yeah.
I'm hearing mixed opinions,
Yes.
but I don't know what you're thinking for the
Great
next
question.
steps. And to Mr., to Kim over
Bernard.
here, Mr. Bernard, how much of it is going to be able to be actually enforceable? I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
the next
put it all in my
steps.
head. And I mean, I've seen good dogs, very well-behaved dogs,
Right.
in a stressful situation react poorly. And so there's always, like she said, there's always two sides. You don't know what is
Right.
surrounding, were there fireworks going off? The dog got all anxious and
Right.
excited and the sudden thing happened and you just never know and I'm not defending it because there's a lot of
no.
nasty dogs out there. I'm not saying that either.
no.
But I'm trying to wrap my head about
Right.
what you're thinking about doing.
Well, I understand your concerns, and I see that myself, and I see that in my own dog. Dogs can get stressed, right? But any dog etiquette should go back to the responsibility of the dog owner. If they see their dog getting upset or agitated, they need to remove the dog from the situation.
Right.
That is common sense. You need to always be mindful and alert of your dog's behavior and emotions, and that's part of information and education.
But I guess to my point is, I understand all of that, but what's the next?
So Deb, that's a good question, and we were talking about
Yep.
that today. And kind of the neat thing that all of these discussions brings is, as I said in the beginning, Pam and I had never talked before, a couple weeks ago when we met, and then again today, and working on this together, and also Jonathan Kipp, our moderator. What I've tried to do since I was here the last time is send the ordinance that we presently have around to a few people. And if anyone else would like to jump on board with this and give us your thoughts. And we want to amend what we presently have after looking at other towns and, in different situations are out there. But what Pam has really helped me to realize is that, dog etiquette is a big part of this too. And we need to spread the word as the town clerk's office more on that aspect of it. Reminding people, as you would suggest it, when they register their dog, what is proper etiquette? Being mindful to not let your dogs go up to someone unless you ask permission first. The little pink or green poop bags, those are something that's etiquette. You don't leave it on the side of the road, that we have to be mindful of all those aspects. So through education, we're hoping we can do a lot of this. Neighbors helping neighbors, spreading the word. But again, that next ordinance, my goal is for your next meeting to come to you and have in front of you an ordinance that could possibly be the amendment that we need. And then ultimately, of course, you'll have the final say with our town manager as to if that works. But so kind of a three-step process here. But no, great question, but that's our goal. And then we just have to be responsible pet owners, all of us. It's like we're responsible for our children and we're responsible for our pets.
So you're looking to draft an amendment to the current ordinance, bring that to the police department and the town manager for them to bring it forward?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That work for everyone? Okay. And again, if the community has any thoughts, that's how Pam and I connected. Please bring them forward. I'd really appreciate hearing them, and thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Next item I have is Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire.
Mr. Chairman,
They here?
I was involved in getting these folks on the agenda and was informed this afternoon that due to a health issue by one of the presenters, they're not going to be able to make it. I have rescheduled them for the next town council meeting.
Okay. And I did get a text, Councilor Butler will not be joining us tonight. He's out of town on business. Ladies and gentlemen, this is public comment. So if you have something that is not on the agenda in a public hearing, then you would like to address the council, now would be the time. Yes? I saw two hands, but go ahead, Ann.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive. I just want to say I missed the first portion of the meeting, but I did have something to add, because I or my dog was attacked 3 times in our own neighborhood. First time, I was walking, I had just gotten Gigi, our Gigi, 10 years ago in June. And that first month, I was walking around the neighborhood. And this gentleman who was riding a bicycle, holding 2 leashes, one on each handlebar, was coming at us. So I crossed the street with Gigi, went on the lawn about 10 feet from the neighbors, and the rider of the bike lost control of one of the dogs, came charging at us. And I never had a dog before. I stood in front of my dog thinking I'd be protecting her. And it didn't work that way. The big dog grabbed my dog's leg with his mouth and just started going like this with our dog. Needless to say, she was injured, so I took her, picked her up, ran home, drove her over to the vets. And afterwards, after I had done that, she was safely home, I went and filed a police report with the town of Londonderry. And I understand the dog officer took care of it. I brought him the vet bills from that day, but nothing really was done because I guess he might have left town because I never got paid for the vet bills from the gentleman, and he was gone. I believe he might have been renting the house that he was living in. And another time, I was walking around the same road, and a dog who had one of those electric fences came charging at us. We're on the road. Come to find out, the owner didn't put the batteries in the collar, replaced the bad batteries in the collar, and she knew of it when I came to the house with my dog, because while I was trying to pick my dog up, I had my dog up, but their dog grabbed my dog's leg again. They always, I don't know, go for the legs. But, I brought Gigi again to the vets, brought the bill to the owner, and she was nice enough to pay for it and admit she forgot, she hadn't put the new batteries in it. That was the owner's issue, I think. Maybe a fine could be administered if somebody doesn't keep their systems to control their pets in order. And the third time we were walking around, it wasn't really an attack, but there was two couples standing in the road talking with the dogs on a leash, and I tried to cut a wide path around them, and one of them came after Gigi. No damage or anything like that, but it still scared the hell out of me. Never having a dog before and having this happen so often. So I think there should be some repercussions when it's the owner's fault. There should be something, because we shouldn't be afraid to walk our dogs in our own neighborhoods, or not on the rail trail or anywhere else the public is known to walk, and hopefully the dogs are leashed. I just want to add my 2 cents today because it really scared me. I was worried every time I went out. And I shouldn't have to be. And I've never walked the dog on the rail trail because I was worried about that. Because there are, dogs and people we don't know, and you don't know what can happen,
Well, thank you,
And
and I'm
I-
sorry that happened to you.
Well, so am I, but I just want to add my 2 cents on it. And it's the needness issues that should be addressed. I think if dogs are controlled by their owners, there shouldn't be an issue. And people shouldn't just assume that the dogs who are friendly to the owners and the neighbors and all will always remain that when confronted with other dogs or by other dogs, or even just a general situation when there's a gathering. You should always be on the lookout for any issues that come before you, but you also be in control of your dogs at all time when other people are around. And that's what I believe, and I thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Hi, ma'am. Just name and address, please.
My name is Maura Ryan, and my address is 2 Snowberry Hollow. Just to clarify, to start off, are we to talk about anything on the agenda at this point, or just the dogs?
So public comment is for you to express whatever it is that's on your mind. If there's other things on the agenda tonight that are part of a public hearing, such as the tax incentive plan and the veterans tax credit, that would be something we would entertain comments for then. But if there's
Okay.
anything else you'd like to talk about, now would be appropriate.
Okay. I just wanted to say this. I can see people not following through on court issues just because in small claims, it's a preponderance of the evidence. I don't think most people understand what that means. And a lot of people don't follow through because it's a very confusing process. And if you were to hire an attorney, it would probably cost you more in the vet bills, more in the amount to hire the attorney than the vet bills would cost you. But in the interest of being good neighbors too, you want to have the people around you sort of in a peaceful state. So I see what you're trying to do, and I hope you can achieve a balance between that because, you know, we do have the right to have our pets, and we love our pets, but the difficulty with these incidents is an issue.
What I can promise you is that if an ordinance comes to us, we will be methodical about it, we will go slowly, and we will make sure that we do it right the first time.
Okay.
And it won't be something that we'll vote on, you know, immediately. We're going to listen to what the people have to say and try to make the adjustments so that not only is it the right kind of ordinance, but it's also workable, so that it can be enforced.
Okay,
May I ask a
thank you.
question, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Yeah, just had a quick question for you. Just kind of thinking about this, is it something that you really feel like a leash law would be something that should be in effect, or do you believe in the fact that people can control their animals, dogs, based off of verbal command?
If you do the proper training and your dog is responsive to voice command, so like there's a gentleman in Amherst Country Club Kennels, he does dog training and he was a marine dog handler. So his dog training is spot on, and if you do it, your dog is going to listen to you. There's other trainings that are not as good. And I've known Doberman pinchers who have been under voice control and who have never hurt anybody. And I've known other dogs that are supposed to be super friendly and they, you know, get a little wild sometimes. So I think it depends on the training.
Yeah, because we've heard a couple of people already talk about the fact that even with leashes, that, you know, that wasn't really the solution for them. So again, just trying to think about what we would have to change it and what was the most effective method, so.
Well, when I was 9 years old, I was riding my bike and a Dalmatian bit me right here and took a big chunk. But the people were very sorry and I understood that. And, you know, I understood that their dog was a baby and it didn't quite understand. And I'm not afraid of dogs or anything like that, but I certainly see where people would be.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
for
that
your
dog was on a leash incidentally. He just jumped up on my bike and took a chunk out of my hip. But thank
Sometimes
you.
we just hear like, okay, you know, if you had a leash law, everything would be solved, and that obviously is not necessarily the case, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
If I could just, kind of echoing what Councilor Green said, add my perspective as somebody who used to be involved in these issues as the prosecutor for the police department. You know, these are, as was pointed out, we do have an ordinance that's in place that's fairly robust. And basically what it does is it adopts the state statute that regulates dogs running at large, is the name of the statute. And whereas with most crimes in New Hampshire, when we want to charge somebody with a crime, we have to prove that they have, almost think of it as like a guilty conscience, that they're doing something that's really wrong, and a lot of times they know it. That's not the case here. These are what are referred to as strict liability offenses, and so if in a lot of these situations that are being described, you have a dog that's off leash that is running up to somebody and attacking them or attacking their dog, the state, the police department has the ability to move forward with charges, even though you know, somebody didn't do something wrong, so to speak, and knew that they were doing something wrong. And so I do think it's the case that we have, both with the state statute and the leash ordinance that we have, or the dog control ordinance that we have most all of the authority that we need to deal with these issues. I think where tweaks can be made is around the definitions. So I said a minute ago that we've sort of just brought in the state definition of what a dog at large looks like. I think that we could adapt that definition a little bit better to fit the circumstances of Londonderry. But I just wanted to add that perspective and give some ideas to the town clerk and those that she's working with on this draft.
We look forward to seeing what you all come forward with.
I did want to bring something up, if that's okay,
course.
on the same subject matter. So I was over a friend's house. It was a dog just wandering, not running, just kind of walking around. And I said, leave it alone to my friend. But my friend insisted that she had to stop the car and try to get the dog into her car or broach the dog. The dog then got aggressive. And people, I know they think that they're trying to help the dog, but now you're a stranger coming at a dog in an unfamiliar situation, and it's really the dog's instinct is to protect itself because it doesn't know who you are. And so I know that there are people that see a dog walking and they want to help the dog, but they really shouldn't. The answer is just to call animal control, leave the dog be, or look for somebody walking around the street going, looking with a leash, looking for a dog, because they get out. I mean, they're great escape artists, some of them, and it happens. A kid runs out of the house, leaves the door that much ajar, the dog gets out, and it's not necessarily looking for trouble, and it may not even be a vicious dog, but in a situation, it could be. And so that needs to be brought into that whole mix of education that we're talking about. People want to help, but sometimes that help isn't what they really should do in that situation.
I think that's exactly right. And what I see the police department doing is, even though, 9 times out of 10, they have the ability to bring forward charges in a lot of these cases, they do use that discretion that we want them to use to try to say, well, this is a situation where this is the 3rd time now that this dog has gotten out and attacked somebody, and they don't seem to be taking it seriously. Now we're going to move forward with a charge. Or a situation where somebody's out on a walk, trips and falls, and the dog runs off. Legally, those are the same. We have an offense that we can charge, but I think most people would say they're not the same from a kind of a moral or a judgment standpoint, and we don't want to take that discretion away from the police.
So, just one more question, I'm sorry. I know this can get deep. Just real,
Doggone.
yeah, doggone. So, let me ask you from a prosecutor's standpoint, just I think for others to understand. If, as we say, under the control of the owner, right, as they kind of say that, and that could be a leash or it could be just on the commands that we talked about earlier. But if that dog should attack and there should be injury, the person that's the owner of the dog automatically responsible for those injuries? Because I've heard a lot about people saying, well, I didn't want to go after him, or I didn't want to go to court. But I think just my interpretation, I thought, was that if you get injured, that is completely the responsibility of the dog owner. Is that not the case?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 separate tracks. One is the court track.
Yep.
And typically what happens when you go to court, and let's say it's not a dog offense. Let's say you punch somebody at a bar and they have to go to the hospital. Well, you're not only responsible for the crime that you've committed, assaulting somebody, you're also responsible for the hospital bill because that flowed or resulted from the offense that you committed. The same is true with offenses like this, and the court will consider awarding what's called restitution as part of that process. I do take the point that was just made a minute ago, which is if you are not going to court as part of kind of the police criminal process, but you just want your bill paid, you do have that small claims option available. It is intimidating in the first instance, but I think the court system has really done a lot to streamline it and to make it more accessible. It's all online, and you do have that option to recover your damages as well. Because yes, the situation you describe, your dog for whatever reason runs up and attacks somebody. Typically I would expect that civil liability would result. There's always going to be that exception, right? Like, let's say somebody breaks into your house and lets the dog out. Not really your fault. And so, it's hard to say all the time, 100%, yes, there's going to be civil liability, but I would expect that we would be talking about civil liability in these situations.
Thank you.
Everybody good? All right, so here's what I heard. Yes, are you coming up to talk about dogs, or can I then can I finish about dogs? Okay, so here's what I've heard around the dog ordinances. What we're looking to do here is we've had 1,500 incidents over the last 3 years, we have 5,000 dogs. So on average, 10% of the dogs in town are having some sort of incident that has been reported. We don't know what has been unreported. We have about 1,000 plus dogs that aren't registered. So what we're really trying to do here is bring attention to the custodial relationship with the town and the dogs and the owners in town, bring that to a higher level, do more education, and tighten up the ordinance. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, and I think that's very doable.
Okay, then let's move forward with that. Yes, young man.
Oh, that's nice, young man. Dan Bouchard, O'Connell Drive, Londonderry. When I was looking through the packet, I came across something that was really disturbing to me, that the Lions Club is getting out of their lease over there. What is, I guess, it doesn't say a lot, and I guess I'm
That's because it
concerned.
all just happened in the last 72 hours.
Okay,
And we're going to get into it in a lot more detail.
all right, because I mean,
Yes, there's very candidly, we have a safety issue with the building.
yep,
And we're addressing it, and we have to move rather quickly.
because I know that, for years, the senior center was either maintained by the Londonderry Police Relief Association, or then it was the Fire Department Association, and then the town took it over.
The town took it over, we've added on to it, we
Yep.
replaced the roof.
Exactly.
We've almost replaced the entire building.
I-
The town does own the former town hall, which was moved in 1880 to that spot.
Yep,
Has been maintained by the Lions Club since 1972. We did, the building was closed by the building inspector about 5 or 6 years ago. We replaced the floor, brought the building back within usable space. Through a series of, I guess we can call it environmental type of things, there's been further damage to the building. So we need to, frankly, we need to get a structural engineer, and we need to restrict access. I'll let Mike get into everything we went through with the Lions Club and everything. It's nothing that any of us are happy about, but we have to put safety first.
I just, I know that,
And literally, this went down, excuse me, this all, that's the wrong terminology. This all came about on Thursday and Friday of last week.
okay, because I know that, we always like to have, community involvement. And I look at the Lions Club like mom and, apple pie, because, the Lions Club has been there for forever, and
1880.
and you look at them with their Christmas tree sales, and they do a lot of good for the community. So I just hope you're going to keep that in mind, and hopefully they can stay there, and, the town can help them with that building.
So the town owns the building.
Yep,
The fire department and the building inspector said we need to restrict access. Some actually suggested that we may need to take the building down.
No.
I offered to be able to go buy the rail that they can get run out of town on.
yeah,
So, so we're gonna do, we're gonna follow what the experts tell us to do with the intent of being able to save the building. But as it stands right now, they've told us that it's probably not a good idea to have the level of activity that we've had in the building, and that we need to restrict access.
okay. But the Lions Club is
We
still
were gonna
sticking
cover that as
around,
part of the
right?
agenda.
The Lions Club's still sticking around, as far as you know?
Well, the Lions Club is not, so it's a little bit complicated because they have a lease, and in their lease, it
Correct.
requires them to do certain things. So if they don't terminate their lease, they're required to do certain things. If they leave their lease in place, we can't move forward as a town and do what we need to do.
Okay,
So legally, some functions have to take place.
okay.
Am I getting this all right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, do you want me to address those details now, or should I leave it for my town manager report?
Go ahead and do it now.
Okay. So, as you pointed out, Mr. Chairman, this was very fast-moving last week. You'll recall that I came before the council maybe a month ago, 3 weeks or a month ago, and said, we've been having these discussions with the Lions. The Lions, we've had multiple productive meetings with the Lions, I would say, over the past 6 months. And there was just a growing recognition that that building has a lot of needs, is going to require a lot of investment. And the Lions, don't forget, as you pointed out, Dan, they're a charitable organization. They do a lot of good. And so I think they have struggled with the idea of taking those donations and having to put them into the building as opposed to doing the programming and the what they really want to be doing. And they should be, commended for that. I want to make it clear that the Lions are asked me to communicate to you that they just couldn't make it tonight. They have their general elections. They have some other things planned. They don't intend that to signify that there is a termination of any kind between the town's relationship with the Lions and us. But to circle back as far as how we got here, there have been a lot of eyes on that building as I have implemented the council's directive, which has been to explore taking back the Lions Hall as a municipal facility of some kind, perhaps allowing for some usage by the Lions, perhaps allowing for usage by other community groups. And in the course of those inspections and viewings of the property, the concerns about that property have not decreased, they've increased, to the point where some of the things that have been mentioned are exposed electrical work, rotting insulation on the electrical, a bulge in one of the walls was noted, some foundation cracks and evidence that there's been some shifting of the foundation, and an improperly installed moisture barrier under the floor, which has allowed some mold to grow. The real concern that we had, sitting everybody down, the division chief of fire prevention, the building inspector, the director of municipal facilities, myself, was, hey, there's an educational usage that's being made of this property on the second floor. There are some code concerns about the ingress and egress into and out of the second floor. And number two, as the Lions have become appropriately more concerned about their financial picture, they have frankly done a better job of renting it out and renting it out for large events. And it's those large events, putting a lot of people in that building, that really have us concerned from a safety standpoint. I made the decision after conferring with those officials that I mentioned and hearing the unanimous agreement from them that, there was really only one option here, and it was to restrict access. That isn't to say that, one or two people can't go in and out of the building for some legitimate purpose, but it is to say that we can't have groups of up to 135 people in this building because there's a life safety concern. As I mentioned, the Lions really only have one source. I take that back. They have multiple sources of income and revenue, but a major source of that income and revenue is the ability to rent out the space. We've now told them, we can't allow you to rent out the space because we're worried about people getting hurt. Nevertheless, under this lease that they have, they remain solely obligated to maintain the building. And I think, I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I think the concern was, hey, this revenue stream has dried up that has been allowing us to put money into this building. We need an exit strategy. I am not surprised about that. This is happening faster than I had anticipated. I can tell you the Lions are not, even before this past week, the Lions were not saying, hell no, we won't go. They were looking for an exit strategy because they recognized that they weren't able to put as high a percentage of their revenues into charity work as they really felt that they wanted to be able to do. And so that's where we are. We have been working with the Lions and the tenants, the renters, to secure alternative arrangements where possible. Obviously, there are some ticked off people based on the bookings that they had. Understandable. I certainly get that. But this was the decision that needed to be made. It was a decision that I was comfortable with and that those officials were comfortable with, and we need to find a path forward from here.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So the answer is we still need to figure it out.
And you're working on it.
But the intent is to figure out, how to save the building.
Yep.
And it's going to depend. I mean, it depends on what people come back with. If they come back with a number that is, a very large number, we'll take that to the voters, and then the voters will have to decide.
Yep. Thank you.
You're welcome. Folks, we're still in public comment. Is there anyone else who would like to address the council under public comment? Seeing none, I'll move to a public hearing. Ordinance 2022-05.
I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing.
So move.
Motion's been made, second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, this public hearing is for an ordinance creating the Londonderry Commercial and Industrial Property Tax Incentive Program, presented by Mr. Malaguti.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity to present this ordinance to the council tonight. You may recall that I made a brief presentation when the first reading occurred at the last meeting. I'd like to go through that presentation again and amplify it, because I think that a lot of the people who want to participate in this public hearing tonight were not present for that presentation the last time around. For everybody's benefit, this was a program that was discussed at length in the fall of last year and ultimately was tabled in January 10th of 2021. It was a different program. It had the same bones, if you will, but it was much narrower in scope. It was a program that was geared towards a specific area of town, that is what's known as Woodmont Commons 12 on the east side of I-93 in the Exit 4A area, and it was not available elsewhere. There's some other changes that have been made to the program that I'll address as we work through my presentation. In short, this is a program that adopts a tax exemption, one of the few tax exemptions that the state allows municipalities to enact, and its purpose is to attract commercial and industrial users to town. Provided the council finds that there is a public benefit, and provided further that the public benefit outweighs the associated costs and detriments that go along with the project, the council can grant a tax exemption of up to 50% on the increase in value attributable to the improvements that are made for up to 10 years. To help illustrate why I'm asking the council to consider this ordinance, I'd like to engage in a hypothetical. I want you to assume for a minute that there are two properties in Londonderry. One is a residential property and one is a commercial property. And I want you to assume further that the town needs to raise $25,000 to fund its budget. I want to emphasize that this is illustrative. It is not real world. However, it breaks down concepts and principles that are real world and are at play here in Londonderry today. One point of clarification, the tax exemption that we're talking about here is not on the total value that the property has. It is on the increase in value that goes along with whatever construction work is being done in terms of improvements. And so we're not coming in and granting a tax exemption on value that already exists. We're talking about a tax exemption on value that is new value. Going back to the hypothetical, again, we have those two properties in town. One is residential and one is commercial. Let's assume that they're both worth, in April of 2021, $100,000. To get our tax rate, we divide the money that we need to run the town, and that's shown as the $25,000 budget, by the total townwide valuation. And we get a townwide tax rate of 12.5 cents. As you would expect, the residential and the commercial tax bills are the same because the valuation is the same. The tax rate is applied to that valuation, and you get a tax bill of $12,500 for both the residential user and the commercial user. Importantly, they're both sharing an equal portion of the town's total tax burden. Moving forward to year 3, and I didn't skip year 2, this is just reflective of the fact that we only do townwide revaluations every 2 years. And The market has done what markets do. It has fluctuated. In this case, it has increased, and it's increased differently for residential properties than it has for commercial properties. I want you to assume that the residential property has appreciated by 25%, and it's now worth $125,000. The commercial property, and this is similar to conditions that we have observed recently, is appreciating, but it's appreciating more slowly. And so let's assume that it goes up by 8%, and that property is now worth a total of $108,000. We're not raising more money. We still need $25,000 to run the town, but the total townwide valuation has gone up. And so, as you would expect, the tax rate goes down. We now have a residential tax bill of $13,411. The commercial tax bill is $11,587. You can see that by a pretty good margin, even though we're not raising more money, we don't need more money to run the town, the residential tax bill has gone up. It's gone up $911. Also, the commercial value has increased, but this is pretty remarkable. Even though the valuation has increased, the tax bill that the commercial property is going to get is lower than it was initially. And that is because the residential user is bearing that much more of the total townwide tax burden. Now let's say that we have a new commercial property that's coming to town. It's after construction, going to be worth $50,000, and that's its market value. Let's apply the maximum tax exemption that might apply in year one. Again, this is just illustrative. Certainly a $25,000, a $50,000 project would not qualify for the maximum tax benefit under this ordinance, but assume that we're going to give that maximum tax exemption and grant them a tax exemption of 50% on that increased value. We're going to take the $25,000 that we need to run the town. We're not raising more money again. We're going to add that $25,000 that's still subject to taxation to the total townwide valuation, and the tax rate goes down. What happens to the three tax bills for the three taxpayers in town? The residential bill is now $12,111. The residential user is bearing less of the town's total tax burden because of the new commercial value that has been added. The commercial bill is now $10,464. They're bearing 41.8% of the tax burden. And the new commercial tax property, the new commercial property, their tax bill, $2,422. They're bearing 10.3% of the total tax burden. So between the two commercial properties, commercial is now bearing the majority of the town's total tax burden. We're not seeking to incentivize commercial and industrial users to come to town as an end in itself. It's not because we love commercial and industrial taxpayers. We're doing this to benefit residential taxpayers. We propose a different program than the one that was tabled last year. Among other things, as I mentioned, the scope of the program is different. Whereas this was only available to a very small section of town within the Woodmont Commons development the last time around, we've expanded it town-wide. We feel that that is more equitable and that it will provide a larger benefit to the residential taxpayers who you've heard from this tax season. I also propose a trial period whereby the ordinance will sunset in 18 months without further action of the council. This allows the council and the community to take the program for a test drive and to see if it is achieving the benefits that we are seeking. Another change is that the ordinance specifically requires us to consider the costs and the detriments that are associated with the development. So even if the council may find that there is some minimal public benefit to the project under review, if the council finds that burdens on sewer, water, neighbors outweigh that public benefit that's been identified, the ordinance does not allow the council to grant the exemption. It's often been said, Mr. Chairman, that this is a Dillon rule state. What that means is we have a very small toolbox that we can use to grant tax exemptions and to assist taxpayers. This is one of those tools, and I want to thank you for allowing me to present this to the council and to the public tonight.
Thank you. Questions from the council?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Please.
So, Mr. Malaguli, do you think if we were able to do, and I'm not trying to make a big, huge project out of this, but could we do a more hypothetical study, like as an example, if we were to say, you know, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 companies to do something like this would build whatever they want to build, and then how that would actually, taking the real numbers that we have, how that would affect it? You know, because I liked your examples there, but, you know, if we applied some examples, again, put a number of what we would project it to happen over, say, that 18-month period, and then see what those numbers would look like. I mean, so then it's less of a guess. I mean, I like the idea. I think the structure is really good, and I love the fact that we're going to try to benefit the residential, and that's really what we're trying to all do at this point, and get a more balanced tax. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I can say, I mean, it's a good question, and one of the reasons, frankly, that I'm here tonight is because in my first months as town manager, I've gotten calls from developers asking about what incentive programs might be available. And I unfortunately don't have much to talk about. Derry does, because Derry has this program, and we're competing with Derry for these same developers who are calling and asking about incentives. I got a call from a commercial real estate developer who is working on a federal procurement process, seeking to bring a federal tenant to town. He informs me that we are talking potentially about a building that is worth between $67 and $90 million, and is competing with other communities that are bidding on this federal tenant. That is a real tenant who is considering coming to Londonderry, also considering going to other localities. In more specific response to that question, yes, I'm happy to try to project whatever you'd like me to try to project. What I can say is this: we just don't know with certainty how many and what types of users this is going to attract. So it's going to be the same kinds of assumptions that I've made here tonight. I can tell you that if we took this program and we applied it to the properties that currently exist in town, our assessor, Steve Hamilton, has gone through those numbers. He has those numbers, and I think it might be helpful if you could tell the council what the results of that study were.
Sure. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I have examined the current property set for commercial and industrial properties that might qualify for this kind of a program. And in analyzing those properties, there are no properties that have a current building assessment of $30 million or more. And so that's a fairly rare type of property that would be developed here in Londonderry. So it wouldn't be competitive with other Londonderry properties. It would have to be something that would be competing perhaps on a regional basis or even on a national basis to find a attractive place to develop it. For the second tier of properties, which would be those that would be from $15 million up to a total of $30 million or just under $30 million, there were 5 properties with a qualifying building value now. So it's a fairly narrow range for those top tier type projects. The third tier, which is those that are $2.5 million or more, those are more common. There are 52 properties that would qualify presently with a building value of $2.5 million or more. And so this is something which has the opportunity to create an attractive tax stance for the town in the atmosphere of other nearby communities that, to Mr. Malaguti's point, are adopting that kind of relief. To answer the question of can a specific analysis be completed, well, we can complete a lot of calculations, but I'm not sure how faithful they would be attached to reality because we really don't know an awful lot about the projects that might come in response to this incentive.
Because we mentioned that Derry has it, so we have a town right next to us that has data, so that's why I thought we could use maybe some in comparison and contrast to what happened to them, so just an idea.
So it's my it's my understanding, so just to give some specificity, that this has been utilized in Derry. It did allow them, is my understanding, to not only attract new value, but actually preserve value in existing uses that might otherwise have become blighted. Yes, I'm happy to reach out to Derry to get information about what specific properties are granted this exemption right now. My understanding is it is modest. It is minimal at this point in time.
Any other questions from the council? Yes, Deb?
Yeah, okay. Thank you, John. I'm just going to say that wasn't in favor of this from the get-go, and I'm still not in favor of this. When I hear all these things, and I'm reading here and how it's going to bring, jobs, well, businesses are having a hard enough time finding jobs or finding employees as it is now. The unemployment rate is pretty much null and void. That being said, the last time I heard things like this was a big company coming to town, and it was called AES at the time. And let's just take a glimpse back at how that worked out for the people of this town, taxpayers. I think that the residents and the taxpayers of Londonderry have put a lot of money into having a great fire department, fantastic police, good schools, great roads. This is a good town. And we've always prided ourselves on that and saying, you know what, this is where a business wants to be. And I personally would like businesses coming here because they want to be here and be a part of our community, not because they get a tax break and then maybe after the 10 years is up, they turn around and go, thank you very much, I'm going to the next town that has a better tax break, unless you can want to continue it. So I see that as an issue. I also want to make sure that this tax incentive cannot be coupled with anything else, like they can't be in a TIF district or receive any other tax relief or structure within it. I really, really struggle with this on so many levels. I know, we don't want to put in all these houses because they have more of an impact than a business does on our tax burden, on having more kids to go to school. But on the other hand, I don't want to jump into something just to jump into it because a neighboring town is doing it because they're limited in the space that they have available. And the space that they did have available was in downtown Derry that was blighted, and they needed to fix those buildings because the residents that owned that building lived out of town. So the landlords were absentee landlords, and they had to figure out a way to get those guys excited about or incentivized to fix those buildings that were close to being condemned. So for me, this thing really shouldn't be here, and it should be going out to the people who are going to have to be affected by it. And to me, it should be on a warrant, and it should go out to the taxpayers, and they should make the decision on whether or not this is how they want to deal with it. That's my 2 cents, but I really think that there needs to be a lot more thought gone into this project.
Okay.
So to help me understand, please, and rhetorical questions, the tax rate for commercial, industrial, and residential is the same.
That's
Yeah,
a-
correct?
That is an accurate statement of the law.
Okay,
It is not in other states necessarily.
okay.
And that is unfortunately a reflection of state law. It would be great if we could tax commercial differently. We're not allowed to do that.
Because it's a Dillon law state. So, that being said, I don't know if per capita is the correct phrase, but a residential could incur a higher tax impact or services impact on the town more so than in a commercial industrial. Let me elaborate a little bit more. Some examples of impacts of services that essentially cost money is children, going to school and other services. Whereas a commercial and industrial, yes, there's some form of tax impact or impact of services, but if my thought is, residential, there's more of an impact.
I would agree that yes, in general, that you might expect to see that. Obviously, you can't say in 100% of the cases that's always going to be the case. But yes, in terms of impact on school and those types of things, yes.
Directly. I mean, yes, it could bring more people in and stuff like
Correct.
that, but directly
Correct.
at face value. So my thought is, if the tax, break it down and water it down even more, if you say the taxes, so the more buildings, the more commercial and industrial that we bring in, that does not change any of the zoning, correct?
That's exactly correct, and it's an excellent point. This does not allow slaughterhouses in neighborhoods. It does not allow heavy industrial uses in AR districts. It is confined to commercial and industrial zoned areas under the zoning code.
So then, would having this townwide tax incentive program for commercial and industrial, would that circumvent any of the processes and policies that are already set in place, zoning, ZBA, planning board, and everything?
It would have no effect on that.
Okay. And as written, the plan is to have the council essentially empower the council to handle each of these as a case-by-case basis.
That's 100% correct. Right now, the ordinance does not require a public hearing. However, if the council would be more comfortable and thinks that a full-fledged public hearing with newspaper publication is important, that can be inserted.
Okay, next question. If that is the case, and hypothetically speaking, say I'm a business owner and I have a company that I come in and the, I don't know, underwater basket weaving company. And I come in and I apply for the application, there's legitimacy, and I'm denied by the council, but then another person comes in with the same business plan, same model, same everything, and are approved. Is there any legal liability that we as the council or the town would be exposed to for, say, discrimination in any sort?
The council's obligation is to treat similarly situated people and groups similarly. So if you have Project A and Project B and they are 100% the same, and one is approved and one is denied, that would potentially be a problem. But if, as will always be the case, there are difficult questions of judgment that need to be weighed and distinguishing factors between these users and these businesses, and the council exercises its judgment reasonably and in accordance with the ordinance, that should not give rise to legal liability.
Okay. And then more of a statement, and please follow on, Mr. Town Manager, if appropriate. So if I'm collecting money, so to break this down as basic, so if the tax rate is $10 like $10. And I say, hey, Mr. Town Manager, instead of, you paying me $10, I'll cut it to 5. I'm still getting 5, I'm still in the positive that 5.
100%. It's all new value. We are not granting a tax exemption against any tax that we're currently collecting.
Okay. So therefore, by doing this, just to clarify, Mr. Chair, thank you, this is going to create more tax revenue and not put a higher burden on the residents.
That is the idea, and that is what I believe will happen. And I would also note, every year that goes by after an exemption is granted is an increasing amount of revenue to the town as the size of the exemption steps down.
Titrates down.
Correct.
And then for this purpose only, the time frame, just for clarification, the time frame that you're looking to have this without any further action of the council would be how long?
18 months.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just redirect for a
Thank you,
second. I
Counselor.
just need to
You're going to redirect?
Yeah, just because I wanted to ask, you know why? Because I think the, this was missed a little bit on the, I don't know if you could bring that back up. There's two screens that I wanted to look at. The first one was the one with, when we talked about where the tax payments would be for residential and commercial.
In
And
year
then
1 or year 3?
the first year,
Okay.
and then take a look at the last one that you had, and that clearly states to me, and I don't, maybe I'm missing something, but I'm trying to look in those two, so this one's here, and we have the residential tax payment of $12,500, but then when you go to the third one, yep, you have, the residential tax bill went down because of the fact that you brought that commercial tax and the new incentive that we're talking about. So I just want to direct back to this. I mean, if we're saying that this is going to not cause residential taxes to be benefited, then we're saying we also don't believe this calculation. So that's what,
Right,
I'm just saying, if people don't believe this calculation, maybe there's some
Correct.
other things that we can do to show them real, back to my first thing, to show them real life situations and say, hey, here's the documents that we have already. This is what's already in reality. If we were to do this, X, Y, Z, ABC, this is what the new tax for a $300,000 home would be.
Okay.
That's, I think what I'm hearing, and I think what another counselor at least is hearing, is that this is going to be a benefit for the residents and take the tax rate down. And I don't want to just give up on something that's going to save the taxpayer money.
This is one of the ways, one of the
No one's
precious,
giving up anything. This is a discussion.
one of the precious few ways that I believe we can assist the residential taxpayers who you have been hearing from and who I have been hearing from. Otherwise, we shouldn't be doing it. Because, Councilor Green, to your point, if you don't believe that assumption is correct, then the key purpose of this program is not there.
That's, I guess, my point, is that we got to either believe this or not believe it, prove it wrong or right. And if you believe it, that it's going to help the taxpayer, the residential taxpayer, then we should jump into it. If we don't believe this, then we shouldn't jump into it, I guess.
That's right. And my pitch would be, we talked about it in the fall. It was tabled. We've talked about it more recently. We're never going to know with 100% certainty how something is going to play out. But I suggest to you that we should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good, and that we have a built-in escape hatch if things are not transpiring the way we hope that they're going to be transpiring. And that's that 18-month sunset period.
Thank you.
Okay, Deb,
Okay, thank you.
I'm keeping score over
No,
here.
I know, I'm just trying to keep notes in my head. I'm
No,
so sorry.
listen, take your
So,
time.
You just said that, we've been broached. Personally, I haven't heard from anybody about this in a positive light. Let me finish. So I'm not sure, if you're hearing about it, I'm not getting shared that information, that people are coming to you and saying, Mike, I want to get this in place because I have this great company, or my building's falling apart and I want to take advantage of it to fix my building up. I haven't heard that at all. I've only heard from residents that were not happy with this. So this is why I am saying what I am saying. I also, I guess I'd like to know who's waiting in the wings for this, and how many are waiting in the wings for this?
I don't think it's appropriate for me to name everybody that
All
I've
right,
talked
well,
to.
how many?
I think that you and I my experience has not been your experience. I have heard from people who are concerned about this program. I've also heard from a not insignificant number of folks who think that this makes some sense, or is at least worthy of a test drive.
Could you be specific in like a number, like around 10 people, 20 people, 5 people, 2
I
people,
can't
1
say.
person?
I don't know. You would not believe how many conversations I have with
I
people
would,
on a
because I
daily
have a lot
basis.
of conversations myself. But all of the conversations I have had with at least 20 residents has been on the nay of this. So I just wanted to go back to what Chad was saying about the impact and the burden. So buildings, they have a lot of
Deb, can I ask you a question?
false alarms.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood something. I just want to ask you a question. The nay on what we did before or on what was presented tonight? Because I'm nay on what we did before, too.
I'm nay on all of it.
Okay.
I just don't
I'm
think
sorry,
we should do it
I
at
just
all.
want to, I just want to make sure I understand.
I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you. No worries.
So when you said the tax burden, yeah, there's no students, but businesses have other types of burdens onto a tax on a community. Yes, traffic from out of town. If it's a business that has trucks, 1 truck equals 84 cars, which means we need more roads maintenance on the roads. The other thing is there are a lot of, and I'm sure the fire department and police might say that with the alarm systems, that there are a lot of false alarms that the whole departments have to go out and check to see what's going on. So it does have a burden. So don't say it doesn't. They're different types of burdens, but they both have burdens on the taxpayer. The other thing is when Joe was talking about this whole thing, so let's just take it out. Any new property, residential or commercial, coming to the mix is gonna lower that rate, whether it's getting the 50% or not. Actually, if it came in by itself, the tax burden would even be lessened. So I struggle with
If I may,
why we need to go out of our way to do these things.
Okay, let her finish. You all set?
Yep, I'm fine for the moment.
Go ahead.
if I may, Mr. Chairman, a couple of things. I do think that, going back to something that was said earlier, a great deal of thought has gone into this. A great deal of time has been spent by me and by the staff, and so it is not the case that this has been underthought.
Nobody thought that.
It is true, the residential property to the tax rolls also benefits residential taxpayers. The problem is that the scope of that addition is limited, and that's because, by definition, we're talking about taxpayers here who are paying tax on buildings that are worth $2.5 million, $15 million, $30 million. There are not too many of those residences in town. And so while Councilor Pauls is correct that there is that positive effect when a residence is added to the tax rolls, it is nothing like the benefit of adding a user of the kind that we've been talking about to the tax rolls.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I may address Councilor Paul, I believe what I had said was that I didn't state that there was no tax impact, but per capita, it was a less tax impact as a residential, not favoring any of the two.
Okay, thank you.
And then additionally, Mr. Town Manager, if I may, when I was a young Marine, I attended a financial class that was put on through Navy Marine Corps Relief Society. And they gave me an example of without truly understanding the military rank structure, the higher rank you go, the more responsibility and also the more pay you receive. And they shared an example of how there was a lieutenant colonel that was their wife had, or their spouse had come in and seeking some financial budgeting assistance. Now, this was someone that was getting compensated well over, a considerable amount, who was well established in their career. And the point of them bringing that up was, regardless of where you're at financially, you know, I say I get paid, you know, I have an annual salary of $20,000 and I go get a $40,000 or double that $50,000 job, you know, being mindful of the spending and not, you know, living out beyond your means. So I think my point of bringing that up is just the fact that we as a town, as a community, need to be mindful of the spending, because there might be additional funds that are coming in, regardless if it's that, back to my previous statement, $5 or $10, but we need to continue to be mindful of the spending, because this is taxpayer spending. And I just want us as a council, if I may, when considering, you know, however route this goes, whatever the council decides on this, that, you know, if approved, that we continue to partner with you and the community and with your staff to be as mindful as we can with that taxpayer revenue and money.
I think that is very well received by me, Councilor Franz. It's actually timely, because one of the things that I did was I was interested in knowing, well, gosh, you know, what have our appropriations done over time? And what I saw was that for the last 3 fiscal years, they've either gone down or been flat, and that is including not only the budgeted appropriations, but also the warrant article appropriations. I would like to continue that, and I think that if we can bring in this new value, it should not be licensed to inflate the size of our budgets. It rather should be going to its intended purpose, which is to benefit residential taxpayers.
Thank you.
Everybody good?
No, I have one more thing to say.
Well, go ahead. I mean, I can wait.
Okay. So, Mr. Malaguti, I said not just residents, but even a new business coming to town would also do that. And I just want to say, I do know that you guys spent a lot of time on this. I never said that it was just thrown together or willy-nilly, so I wanted that to be clear.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
I just don't like it, so that's just my own personal opinion. I do have one thing to say. Now, from reading it and what I'm hearing here, this is not just for new businesses. This is for an existing business that wants a facelift, or that is might want to expand, or it can also go for this. Is that correct?
That is correct, provided that business is in Tier 1, Tier 2, or Tier 3, not based on the total size of the existing business, but based on the value of that facelift, or the improvements, or the
Well,
addition.
I just wanted the board to, and the residents to hear this. This means, so if a business owner has maybe let the building run down, fall into disarray, he can come here, get this 50% off, get the tax exempt, fix up the building with a little extra cash, turn around and flip it, correct? Yep,
No.
why not?
He could not turn around.
After 10 years, he could.
Yes, yes, that's correct. So after 10 years, or after the
After he's
length of
got the
that's correct.
benefits and he's,
Because there is a covenant that's recorded with the Registry of Deeds to protect the public benefit during the life of the tax exemption. But no, there's nothing that would
stop him from
Stop him
flipping
from-
it,
that's-
from
that's
us
correct.
helping him benefit from it that way. So I just want people to understand all of it. And when we're saying it's benefiting the tax bill and the residents, it's benefiting some businesses that I guess may be struggling. It gives them an opportunity to do things. But I personally would rather this just be for new businesses and new businesses only.
I don't believe that would be
You can't do it,
constitutional.
because this was created for brownfield,
It was-
struggling businesses.
Well, it was a
It was
program that
for the
was,
cities.
that was initially only available in Coos County. It did so well there, and there was so much interest around the rest of the state that the legislature rolled it out statewide.
Right. It was mainly used in like Nashua, Manchester, to help areas in their towns that have kind of fallen in disarray, to help them do that. So I just kind of want people to understand what this is really for, and what we're thinking it's going to be for is kind of almost two different things. And so that's where I struggle with it. And I guess I'm done talking on this. Let the residents speak.
guys all set? Is it my turn?
Yes, go ahead.
So folks, I know a number of you are here for the veterans tax credit, which is coming up next. We're talking a lot about taxes here tonight, so I'm going to address some things now that I would have addressed later anyway, since you're sitting here and you may have questions around this. So here in the state of New Hampshire, what a Dillon rule means is that Concord makes the rules and we have to follow them. That's basically what it means. We can't create something that's any more significant than what Concord has created. Not necessarily that we agree with a lot of the things Concord does, or they do send us down some programs that are good and some that are unfunded and some that have benefit and some that don't. But they make the rules. Here in Londonderry, we have to raise about $120 million every year to run the government here. The town operates as the bank. We also operate as the salesperson, the revenue generator, the people who have to go out and get the money. And then we have to pay everybody else. So we have to, the library is a separate form of government. It is absorbed as part of the town budget. 23, so if you're spending $1,000 in taxes, $230 of that goes to the town. The rest of it essentially goes to the county, and then some of it goes to state education. That we get almost 100% of that back, and the rest of it goes to the schools. So when we look at doing these things and trying to drive more revenue, I had a conversation with our other form of government starting 4 years ago, telling them that this burden was starting to shift. We could see all the trends of it shifting, and that the residential tax burden was going to start increasing, mainly because we saw less development and mainly because residential property values were continuing to go up, while commercial property values, based on all the abatements and everything else we were receiving, were remaining flat. So we knew that this has been coming for 4 years. So this is one tool that the state has given to us to be able to address this. Part of the problem we have is that such things as what we'll talk about next, any type of tax credits we give and everything, has to come out of the bank. And it has to come out of the bank, meaning the town, before we distribute any money. So we can't give a credit, in taxes to somebody and then go to the schools and say, hey, give us your $100, because they say, no, because that's what Concord says. That's the law. That's how we have to do things. We do have more flexibility with the library. They will work hand in hand with us and everything. But at the end of the day, if we don't raise more revenue, taxes go up. It's just that simple. With regards to the power plant, at one point they were paying us $8 million a year. At one point, that was 7.8% of your taxes was being paid by the power plant. We have since settled a lawsuit, and they pay us about $5 million a year. So they pay about 4.7% of your taxes at this point. I have explained to people over the years that over $200 million, it was 120, and was it 120? It was about $120 million over the 20-year period has gone into the school system to pay for things in the school of revenues that have come out of, several of the commercial properties that are up by the airport. So there is a benefit to driving more business into the town. So with all of that information and everything, I'll turn it to you to public comment, and then we'll bring it back to the council. If there's anyone who would like to speak on this item, please come forward. Yes, sir. I'll come back to you, Dan. Go ahead. You can sit down or you can stand, whichever you're more comfortable with.
I'll stand, sure. Hi, my name is Robert LeBrew. I live at 76 Hall Road.
I think I remember you from town meeting.
Yeah, could be, yeah. So, a couple things, and some of these things are kind of a reiteration of what one counselor or another may have said. But back to the slide number 3, or the year number 3 slide in the presentation, it's true that it shifts the burden overall away from the residential taxpayer in that year 3 under that proposal. But it still shifts some of the burden away from existing commercial and industrial properties as well.
That is correct.
And so we're going to, just say for example, we're going to give a 50% tax discount for the first 10 years on some new $10 million industrial or commercial building. Is the assumption that they would never build here absent this kind of an incentive? Because, and let me finish if I may. I think there is, and if they would, there was plenty of places built here without tax incentives, and so if that, whatever that number is, that it's going to help defray the costs, so to speak, or spread out the costs away from the residential taxpayers. If it's from 50% of the taxes you could have been collecting, well, then simple math is it would be twice as much if you collected the whole enchilada, the whole 100%. I think it's excessive. I think 10 years is a long time to carry it out. I mean, I could be old by then. And so, you know, I understand the concept, you know, and I understand it has worked well in some areas. And I understand that some other parts of the country, particularly southern states, bend over backwards to get auto manufacturing plants in there and talking incentives in the billions of dollars spread out over some years. I just don't see it as a good fit for Londonderry. I think this is a very desirable community. I think a lot of companies would love to be here. You know, it's a great community. We have the airport, I-93, direct link, thank you, Ray Resorg Drive, to the Everett Turnpike, toll-free, I might add. And so, you know, not far from 101, the only 4-lane east-west route to the seacoast on I-95, just a stone's throw away. We're in good shape. People want to be here, and businesses want to be here, too. And I don't know that we need to incentivize it quite that much. Just because one town may be offering a certain amount of incentive, I don't think it means that we have to match it, because I think businesses that are looking to relocate to here are looking at not just, well, what do we got for incentives? What are we going to get for a break on this today? I think they're looking at a lot more things besides that. And I don't favor this. I think, in any case, if you do something with it, I think 5 years ought to be the limit, and I think it ought to sunset after 12 months, not 18. Because, you know, you want to try it. I get that. You know, you want to try it. You want to try to do something. People are upset about their property taxes. You know, I'm no exception to that. So I understand that. You want to try something. Well, try, but make it a small trial. And finally, to reiterate a point that Councilor Franz made, I fear a lawsuit landmine here, because you're government picking winners and losers, and here's your grant, and here's your grant, and you don't get a grant. And that concerns me. So for all those reasons, you know, just don't like this. Again, if you have to try it, try to keep it small. And, you know, I know that there's been other incentives over the years. It's a TIF district, I believe, Pettingill, that worked out pretty well. And I don't remember what the deal was when AES built what's now Granite Ridge. But I believe there was some kind of incentives involved in that, I'm not sure. And by the way, I like Granite Ridge. I liked it when it was proposed as AES. I liked it when it was built, and I like it today. And yes, it is in my backyard. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? It's okay if...
I just have a question. I don't know if maybe Representative Thomas can help. I know there are bills at the legislature that that could possibly limit some of the town's ability to pick and choose what's going on in the towns as far as building, correct? The Senate bills? That is taking it away from, it's true, that is taking it away from some of the control. I just wondered if there was any way the state could interfere with this. And then my
In
other
land use regulations?
Yeah,
Huh?
that's what
Well-
she's talking about, I think.
Huh?
You're
So
talking
there
about
is
land
some-
use regulations.
Land use regulations,
think
so I
there's-
just wondered.
think
That's one
there's-
question. My other one, and then I'll sit down. My other one is, yes, I personally feel that things are different now than they were several years ago, dramatically different, and people are looking for incentives. They are picking and choosing where they go based on incentives because things are tough, so.
Yeah, land use regulations in the state of New Hampshire are the third rail. So if the legislature is going to go after land use regulations, that's going to be a problem.
There is some bill that's looking at
And
regulating
it's going to be the third rail.
short-term rentals, which I think is what Ms. Perez was maybe referencing.
Yeah, that's the whole North Conway thing that went on.
Correct.
Right. I mean, the legislature would be ill-advised to go after land use regulations in this state.
Yeah, I mean, the best that the legislature could do vis-à-vis this program would be to repeal the program, and we wouldn't have much to say about it.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not either way on this thing yet. I'm listening. Yes, Dan.
Mr. Chair, before Mr. Bouchard speaks, can I just, real quick?
Sure.
Assistant Town Manager, you had brought to our attention several times in the past regarding signing up for legislative updates by going to the Gen Court website. Would you be willing to just address the audience regarding that anybody can sign up for that to get those updates?
I think what the Councilor Franz is referencing are the NHMA updates.
Yes.
Is that what you're referencing? Unfortunately, I don't think those are available
Understood.
to anyone. The town, as an entity, pays a membership fee to NHMA, so our town officials and board members and those sorts of things have access to them. But those are sent only to that distribution list. You have to have a verified membership, if you
Okay,
will.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
Sir?
First of all, I want to applaud you for trying to come up with something to, help us with the.
So that you're
the
Mr.
text.
Bouchard.
Oh, Dan Bouchard, O'Connell Drive, Londonderry. I was just up here. But I want to applaud the council and, Mike and his staff to trying to do something. However, I would caution you when you say the town of Derry does this, okay? As somebody who's owned property in the town of Derry with the tax rate, I never saw the tax rate as a residential owner be really low. It was very high. Derry's tax rate is very high. We do different things here in Londonderry from Derry. You drive through Derry and you'll see residential home, duplex, it's all a mismatch. And I don't like it when Londonderry compares themselves with Derry. We have a lot of talented people in this community. I think what the council should maybe consider is putting a committee together. There are some financial smart people in this community that could look at this and maybe come back to the council and sit with Mike and his staff and go, financially, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe you could do it differently. So that would be my thought on it, is try to get, we had an issue with the water, and the council went out there and asked for people in the public to come out and help out, and you had some very good, talented people that, with their backgrounds, and maybe this is something else you could look at. I wasn't in favor of it when you went out and it was for Woodmont Orchards, all right? And I'll say it again, all right? That's not supposed to impact our taxes whatsoever, but if you're going to give them a tax incentive, it's impacting our taxes.
Well, I think we pretty much
I know, but now we've opened it
are
up.
on the same page.
Yeah, now we've opened it up for the whole town. I do have issue when you're saying that a company can go out and improve their property and get some kind of a tax relief on it. And being involved in different businesses and stuff, I can tell you that the state of New Hampshire owns a piece of property in a specific town, and a company X leases that property. Company X has never, ever paid any rent on that property. Why? They just do little improvements, okay? That's how they get around it. So there are ways of getting around things, and I would hate to see, Company X on Sims Drive come to you and say, hey, we're going to do this because, we're going to get all this in and we're going to save taxes, Maybe just for new properties, but I guess, Mike, you say you can't do that just for new properties? New
If I can have
businesses?
clarification, if I understand what the ordinance says is that the incentive is only on, for example, they go from 100,000 feet to 200,000 feet, the incentive is only on the additional
That's exactly right, Mr.
100,000
Chairman.
feet, square feet.
Correct. The increase in
It's not that
value-
it's not that I cleaned up the facade of my building.
That's 100% correct.
Okay,
Unless-
just so I
unless-
understand.
Unless cleaning up the facade of your building puts you into one of those tranches, which is a very significant investment. And I think the idea that even if it is an improvement or a rehab, first of all, we want to encourage blighted areas to look better. You know, this is a program that might have assisted in the Apple Tree Mall area and cleaning that up. But what I will say is that I think as far as the concern that people are going to invest that heavily in either cleaning up their property or adding on to it, and then move on after the end of the tax relief period, that's inconsistent with my observations and experience about how businesses behave.
Okay.
So when Webb came up there, okay, up at the airport, and a few others, we had that TIF district.
Right, which we
Okay.
managed unlike any other district in the state.
Right. But why would you not be looking at some more property up there, maybe on, Industrial Drive, Perimeter Drive, whatever, and say, you've got a couple people that are interested, say, yeah, we got, 400 acres over here, and we've designated it for that area, for something like that.
You could do that. You could designate areas where this tax relief would be available. The concern is that, I mean, if you're trying to design the fairest system, you want it to apply everywhere.
Life's not fair.
Well,
can
no,
tell
it's
you that.
not. But, in terms of being equitable, and just based on how much you have to invest to get into this program anyway, that it was appropriate to make it available townwide. But I want to be clear, to your point, we could legally say only in this area. We did it before when we were confining it to Woodmont.
Right. So, I mean, you still got a lot of property up there at the airport. You could designate that area and say,
You could do it as a TIF and not do this.
exactly.
I think, I mean, this is a first conversation.
Yep.
So we'll continue to, based on the feedback, we'll continue to work on it.
But please don't do what Derry does.
Listen, there are neighbors, I want to be nice. Okay.
One last thing.
One more thing.
All right.
Excuse me, anyone else from the public? One more thing, go ahead.
I think, since our incorporation in 1722, there has been adoptions and changes and everything. And I just want to make sure that, we're continuously looking at what's best for the community and what's best for the town. And again, I appreciate the time invested into this. And, I look forward for further feedback from you and from the community. And so thanks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What do you all want to do? You want to continue this and keep on working on it? Yes, no?
I would.
I think just since we've seen it, it's vastly different than the other one, and, I'm leaning towards the things like 5-year, 12-month, as somebody said in the audience here, and the no tier 3. Those are some things that I just think we can make it a higher, to make it better for us, let's increase the, I guess, entrance fee, if you will, by getting rid of tier 3. Bringing it down to a 5-year, incentive instead of a 10, I think that's very logical. And if we really want to test it, let's make it a little shorter as 12 months. Those are some of the things I'm leaning towards. And then we can really see if it's actually going to be beneficial and be able to get out of it quicker.
Okay? So we'll continue this. So I have a consensus to continue?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll continue this. Ladies and gentlemen, we're still in a public hearing. I'm moving to Resolution 2022-06, a resolution relative to the Veterans Tax Credit Policy. As a reminder here, keep in mind what I stated during the prior ordinance discussion. At some point, the revenue has to come from somewhere. When we give tax credits, it only comes out of the town budget. It doesn't come out of any other budgets. It only comes out of the $38 million town budget. That's it. The $86 million school budget remains the same, and no revenue is taken from there. No tax credit is given on that side. It only comes out of the town side of the budget equation. With that,
Mr. Chair, I'm just going to, again, recuse myself because I'm a recipient of this benefit, so thanks.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is the second reading on the ordinance 2022-05. I'm sorry, this is the wrong one.
2022-06.
And so just for everybody's background here, there are two tax exempt, I mean, there are actually more than two tax exemptions that are available for veterans. However, we're talking about two of those tonight. The veterans, optional veterans tax credit, which is currently set at $500, and the all veterans tax credit, which is also currently set at $500. This was last amended in 2017 when the council voted to adopt the recently authorized all veterans credit, which wasn't available at that point, and then phase it in over a 3-year period to the then maximum benefit of $500. In April of 2018, the state authorized municipalities to offer a larger benefit of $750, and Londonderry did not act on that additional authorization. That's the purpose of the resolution which amends our veterans tax credit policy. And as I've discussed before, you certainly have the authority to set both the optional veterans credit and the all veterans credit at the maximum, the current maximum, which is $750. Doing so, however, would not be without fiscal cost. And as you point out, Mr. Chairman, the problem with having this discussion now is that it is outside the normal budgeting process and season. And so when we are considering this, we need to find the money, absorb the money in the operating budget, which, as I have described previously, is not a fiscal best practice. I previously advised the council, based on the economic conditions that were prevailing at the time, that I felt that the council could find likely, that we could find in the budget an increase in both of these exemptions to $625. That would cost the town something like $115,000. And I say something like because this is just a projection. We can't know for certainty, or with certainty, how many, not only what the cost would be of stepping up to that increased benefit for everybody who's taking this exemption now, but what additional interest there might be in this exemption after any action by the council. The reason for my caution, my previous caution is this. It's not a budgetary best practice. Everybody who's been watching the news, I think, is concerned about where we're headed. As an example, you have in your packet, in my town manager report, a letter from Waste Management, which is our trash and recycling vendor, seeking a $190,000 increase based on current inflationary conditions. And so I would be remiss if I did not point out that that kind of an increase is likely a request for an increase is likely the first of many. That being said, it is important to recognize the service that our veterans have made, and that was the basis for my recommendation that we go halfway, and that is the basis for that recommendation that I'm making today.
Questions?
Yes, I have a question. Can every veteran get this, no matter of how much money they make, or is it eligibility? Does it have rules around, like you can only have a certain income in order to get this?
So fortunately, we have the assessor here. My understanding is that neither of these exemptions is means tested, but he will correct me if I have misstated that.
No, that is a correct statement. Receiving the credit requires that a veteran have served 90 days and be discharged honorably from service. And the standard optional credit applies to veterans who served during wartime periods. The all-veteran applies to veterans who served during non-war periods. And by statute, they have to be set at the same level.
I get all of that, but I mean, somebody who's making $500,000 can
They
still
can make
apply for this
$500
and get
million
this,
and they'd
correct?
still qualify as long as they had 90 days service.
Okay. I just was wondering how that worked.
And again, it is the situation where the state, I think you would agree with this, does not allow us to means test these exemptions, or these credits.
Correct. There are very strict statutes and rules that regulate the provision of these.
Well, that was, see, my thing was, is that, you know, I was thinking we could have put in, but I guess the state does this. I was thinking more of a sliding scale sort of thing, so that, you know, a veteran that is, you know, just getting by on Social Security and really hurting and could really use the tax break, as opposed to somebody who's taking it for fun money at a casino. That was my thinking, and so, yeah.
Well,
All right.
I think the town grants this credit as a way to recognize the service of veterans who have
Right.
honorably served.
No, I agree. I mean, they did do a lot for us, but I'm just trying to take it all in. Thank you.
You all set, Joe?
Nope. I wanted to make sure she's all set.
Yeah, I just was curious as how that worked.
So
Yeah, so
here, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So in 2018, I was on the council, and I don't ever remember this being brought up to us. And in fact, when we did put this to $500, I specifically stated, in fact, there was another councilor and I that pretty much went for weeks and weeks back and forth on this, and I wanted to go to the maximum at that time. And we had to, you know, really keep pushing this back more and more. One of the things I think that was said earlier tonight was that, well, I get a lot of calls on this one, and I get a lot of calls on that one. And I think what happens is that people know that what you're interested in or what you're trying to talk about, or you know, we're interested in everything, but there's some things that we actually take a special interest in. And I think those are the people that are levitating towards calling certain counselors, okay? So this is one that I do get a lot of conversations about. Maybe people just think that I'm one of those people that are sensitive to veterans. I have no idea.
I do as well, by the way.
Right. So we get a lot of this, and those folks that at least come up to me, and again, this is not stereotyping, need this incentive. And those are just the folks, again, whether that be, and I forget what the exact number was, 100 and some odd people. Do you remember what
That are
the-
taking these
Yeah.
two exemptions. So,
Like how you came up with that 118, because we had an assumption of a certain percentage of those people that would.
yeah, I don't have that in front of me, but it's, I can get that for you, Counselor.
But I guess my point to this is that, you know, I'm going to ask that we change this tonight to 750. I know that it's probably going to get voted down, and that's just my opinion. But I just want to let people know that I'm going to be certainly, when this passes 625 tonight, I'm going to certainly be talking about this at the next budget, so that if we get the 625 in tonight, at least we're going to get the rest of it for sure in the next budget round. Because I think that we have to kind of make up for lost time, and I realize that it has to come from somewhere. But you already said that you have a plan on how to get the 118. And I'm not so sure that all the people, like you said, those people maybe they're making $500,000 and $800,000 will take advantage of that. So even though those people that we have in that, the numbers that you just, turned in before are eligible for it, I'm hoping that the people that really need it will come forward, and those are the people I'm trying to get that 750 to. So anyway, just, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right, so go back to the budget. So I used to depend on Tom Frieda for all this, so now, gets to be my pleasure. So in November of 2020, gas was $2.19 a gallon. Today, it's over $4 a gallon. Heating oil, if you had heating oil delivered in the last week, you paid $6.50 a gallon. If you lock into a budget plan right now, right now the budget plans are out at $4.64 a gallon, $4.54 from another company. Last year, the budget plan was $2.99 a gallon. The year before that, it was $2.39 a gallon. My point around all this is that what I described earlier, money's got to come from somewhere. So if we come up with $118,000 that we're going to go find and take out of it, we're going to give something up someplace else. I mean, something has to give. We only have X number of dollars. So when we give up $118,000, that's 20. So at 23%, that's like us on the overall budget. That's like us giving up $300,000 or $400,000 when you look at the overall budget. I come from a line of veterans. I have family who's on the Vietnam Wall. I have uncles who served at the Battle of the Bulge. I get it. My problem is the money's got to come from somewhere. And that's always where the issue is. So with that, this is a public hearing, so. Oh, yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you, Counselor, Chairman. My name is Robert LeBrew. I live at 76 Hall Road here in Londonderry. I'm a veteran. Thank you to the town for granting me the veteran's exemption on my property tax. I appreciate it. I agree with Counselor Green that, we should go for the max 750. But having said that, there's still, to the last time I checked, about 8 years ago, there were still some towns that weren't even doing the full amount allowed. So I'm happy that you are doing the full amount, or you were doing at 500. I would recommend you get to 750 as quick as you can, hopefully in one fell swoop. If need be, 625 this year, 750 the next year, I don't know. But, I think it's worth doing. And again, every veteran I know appreciates it, truly does appreciate it. And it matters, it helps. And I think as a group, we appreciate the recognition and being appreciated for it. Now as for the money. Well, 118 grand, rough numbers, not chump change. But it seems to me after several years of town meetings and stuff and proposed budgets and everything else, there's always some stuff that gets brought up that's going to get paid for out of the June 30 fund balance. And there's always money there. I know it's not a bottomless pit of money. I understand that. Okay? But we all know that happens every year. And I've been to town meetings, particularly the old-style traditional town meetings, before so-called SB2 balloting, where the powers that be would have these things that they want to put up there and have warrant. There'd already be in a warrant, or they'd modify or amend a warrant to allocate more money and take it out of the June 30 fund balance. And then some resident would get up there and plead for $5,000 appropriation for cats that get hit on the road to be cared for if they can't find the owner. That's true. That actually happened. I remember that. You asked Joe Ryan about that. It was a good time. So, and that got voted down. It was a passionate plea. But it got voted down because we just don't have the $5,000. And people are like, what about the June fund unassigned fund balance, June 30th fund balance? Oh, no, we can't touch that. Well, not saying you should, not saying you can't either. Thank you for hearing me out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just make one legal clarification. I think I understood the gentleman to be saying, hey, we wouldn't have this healthy fund balance if we didn't have surpluses at the end of the year. But just to be clear, I do not believe we can legally use fund balance to grant this exemption now.
No, we can't. I understand that. We'd have to go to Superior Court to get that. I understand that. That's why I was talking about expenses. No, I understand.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. I brought this up to the town council before budget time. Joe, you apologized to me at a meeting that it wasn't brought to the budget. I blame the town manager at the time for dropping it, not you. This, and as far as it being based on income, these men and women did not go and serve and get different levels of income. And I'm at the point where I'm really tired of everything going for people who don't have the money, but those of us that worked hard so that we do have the money are not being granted things. These men and women served. They deserve this. It's been a long time coming. This town can afford it and has been able to afford it and has not done anything about it over the past 4 years. It is time to acknowledge these men. I asked when I came before the budget to just give them $50 more, just to acknowledge what they have done, and it was never looked at. So please, please realize that these men and women are worth far more than what you're willing to give them at this point.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, we went to the maximum in 2020 of $500, right?
So we went to the maximum in 2017. We adopted the all veterans credit and then phased it in, and we got to the maximum over that span of time.
So in 2020.
That was different. That was the all veterans credit. You changed. Before, it was only men and women who served during wartime.
Right. I
And
just
then
wanted to
you
make
went to
sure
the
we-
all veterans. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the ability to elevate it above the 500. The town hasn't done anything about it.
So when did the legislation change, giving us that ability?
So the legislation changed, giving us that ability on April 1st, 2018.
2018. And it's my understanding that for 100% disability, you did grant the exception and go up to $2,000 for disability, but you did not at that time increase for the veterans that did not have disability.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Do you need me to repeat my name and address?
Yes, please.
My name is Maura Ryan, 2 Snowberry Hollow in Londonderry. Lived here my whole life, enlisted here. I did bring up the fact that the state had increased the normal veterans tax credit to $750 at the time that you guys did the disabled, and you wanted to do the disabled one first, which I do understand. And I asked you to consider this at a later date, which you're doing now, so I thank you for that. The state just entertained legislation to increase the veterans tax credit again, and there was an assessor from Wyndham who was there, and they have $750, and I guess he said that there were some states that even went higher than that by warrant article. But either way, Representative DeShays, who was the sponsor of the bill, stated that the veterans tax credit, the base veterans tax credit, had not been increased since 1865. So it's been quite some time, and I recognize that the all veterans tax credit came into play and went up to $500, which I'm sure the regular veterans appreciate. But the combat veterans tax credit was $500 at that time and had been $500 for a very long time as well. I appreciate that you guys are entertaining this, obviously. I'm 100% in support of it. I think $118,000 out of a $120 million budget is something like 0.9.
So that's my point. It doesn't come out of $120 million. It comes out of the $38 million, which includes our $3.5 million of running sewers. So it really comes out of $34 million. So what we're saying is that none of it comes from any other form of government. It only comes from what we call the bank.
Correct.
Just so we have to find, so what we have to do is we have to go back and look at the budget, not this year, for next year, and find $118,000 that we're not going to spend. And what he's saying is that he can.
Right.
Just so we're clear. It only comes out of the town coffers.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, I'm aware. And I just wanted to say that I would hope that you would entertain the 750 because it is likely going to go up again via the state legislature. And 1865, wow. The fact that it hadn't increased since that long, and Representative DeShays reported that, was kind of eye-opening to me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, the Celtics game was on tonight if you were looking for something to do.
Bad for the Celtics. I'd rather take care of the vets. Joe, you're saying $750 is what you wanted to support as max, and I think you should stick with that. For everything our vets have gone through, $750 is not, breaking the bank here. If you're saying, okay.
$750, Dan, I got to find $250,000, not $118,000.
Okay, so if you're saying, all right, we have to get it out of the budget, I've brought this up before, earlier this year, about if you look at our budget through the years, all the vacant positions we've had, all right, and we have a department head that comes in and says, on average, we have 7 vacant positions every year. 7, okay? If 7 vacant positions is open, and you start counting the insurance and everything, that's $1 million. And how much are we looking for our vets? To give them that $750? $250,000. It's a no-brainer.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, If I may answer Vice Chairman Green's earlier question, we currently have 924 veterans who are taking advantage of either of those two credits.
And your 118, the other part of that question, sorry, the other part of that question was, how did the 118 come up from that to 924? It was a certain percentage of them that would take it?
The 118 is the all veterans, those who are taking the all veterans, the 800 and something balance is the all veteran, I'm sorry, the optional veterans.
Yeah, I was just trying to, so people would know where we got that $118,000. That's the difference between the 500 and the 625, right?
Correct. So when you combine those two credits together, it's currently costing us approximately $462,000 to grant those two exemptions. If we were to take it halfway to 625, it would cost us $577,500.
Gotcha.
If we were to take it to 750, it would be costing us $693,000.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Doug Thomas, 143 Mammoth Road. Council members, thank you for allowing me to speak. I do support this endeavor. Actually, I like Councilor Green's suggestion of 750. I'm proud to say that in 2018, I did vote in favor of the state raising that allowance as a member of the House. I will say that the veterans do so much for our community. They did so much for our country. I will say that as a matter of choice, myself as a veteran, I do not take the exemption. I never have. That doesn't matter. The choice is our veterans deserve the option, they deserve the choice, and there are many out there that do need it, and the amount of work that they put in and basically the crap they go through to get through the service is unbelievable. So I would support the town to please look at sharpening their pencils to see if they can come up with the appropriate money so that we can help our veterans and put the $750 there for them to use, especially for those that need it. Thank you.
Let the, if I'm going to let the other people come up first, Bob, who's spoken already. Sir, please proceed. You can have a seat or at the podium, whichever you prefer. Yeah, Bob, I'm just going to let the other people who haven't spoken yet come on up first.
Let me collect myself for a second.
Take
I'm a
your time.
veteran, obviously. I wouldn't be sitting here if I wasn't. I've been living in Londonderry since 1978.
Excuse me, sir. May I please just have your name and your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's Bill Grazer. I live at 3 Ayers Range Road, and I've been here since 1978.
Thank you.
I remember back when I moved to this town when the veterans credit was $50. And here we're looking at $750, 40 years or plus since. I realize that things change. The town has increased its expenses that they are required to pay for. But I'm sorry, but I get nervous, and I also get very humiliated.
Sir, please.
You see that flag right there? Every veteran who's ever served for that flag, and all of us sitting in here this evening having this conversation wouldn't have it if it wasn't for the veterans who served for that flag. I came to the town back in January to at least inquire about increasing the veterans credit to $750, which obviously I support. Incrementally at $625, and I'd bring it up to $625, and then perhaps next year or the year after adding on another $625. Piecemealing it doesn't solve the problem, as far as my perception is. I know what it's like to lay on the ground and hope you're going to live the next day. And I spoke with you, Mike, if you recall, when I came and talked with you about this. I wrote a book recently, Veterans Reflections, and it's about 60 veterans, all from Londonderry. And when you read their stories and you listen to what they have to say, you can't but feel pride for what they've achieved and what they've done for us. And I'm not including myself. I'm just another GI. But you miss the boat if you don't recognize them for what they've done and allow them the option to take the veterans credit or not and put it at $750. I understand that there's budget constraints and there's concerns, but if there's a will, you're going to find a way. That's really all I got to say about this. I certainly hope that you can see the $750 and vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm Alan Heroyan. I live at 29 Morrison Drive. I want to offer one point that's not been raised. Right now, we live in a crazy world. You can see what's happening in the Ukraine. And we rely on a volunteer military force right now. We do not have a draft. And I think that this town has an obligation, as does every town in this country, to recognize their veterans. Let's boost this up to the max we can give, because if we don't keep our volunteer force, this is going to be total chaos. And every veteran in this room knows that. And that's all I'm going to say. We've been here long, and I'm a Celtics fan too. So I hope you will do your due diligence and get this thing bumped up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Bob.
It's me again, Robert LeBrew, 76 Hall Road. I agree with what most of these speakers are saying about, like to see the whole thing get done immediately. But I also understand your concern about the budget and where you're going to get the money. I get it. It's not just a couple of bucks. So I would like, as much as these guys would too, and I very much would like to see it happen immediately. But if you just can't make the numbers work, can you put something together where it would automatically get the other 125 the following year? And this gives you time to budget for that other 125. Is that possible? Can you do that? I mean, I know this is not a town meeting. I know one town meeting cannot bind a future town meeting. I get that.
No, we can actually do something like that. Legislatively, we can vote on something like that, yes.
Okay, well, think about it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
I collected myself a little.
Take your time.
I want to point out an individual to you. He's my friend Samson Massessa, Korean War veteran, served in the 40th Infantry Division in some of the roughest times in his life, and likewise in relationship to my own are the same. He was a combat veteran, earned a Bronze Star. His grandson, presently serves in the United States Army. He's a medic. He just came back from a rotation in Korea. He's having additional training. He's probably going to be going on to Poland. So it continues. The line continues from 1775 to now. And when you look at $50 I mentioned earlier, it was a token of appreciation. As inflation and things have changed in our life, $7.50 in a lot of ways is a token of appreciation for what's been done by many, men and women. We forget about that sometime. There are a band of women out there, not necessarily a band of brothers. They all deserve the same respect. And I truly, truly believe, from the bottom of my heart, you would be doing an injustice if you couldn't come up with the $7.50, whether it incrementally was just mentioned over a 2-year span or something along that line. And Sam, stand up for a second. He's a 90-year-old veteran. He crawled and crawled all over Heartbreak Ridge. He knows what it's like so many of the others who served. So that's it.
So, sir, my neighbor is 88 years old.
Yeah.
Dr. Cordinelli. He served as a medic in Korea. He's at home watching the Celtic game, so he doesn't know what I'm saying right now. So I go when I watch the games with him and everything. So he, when he got out, the Air Force said to him, he says, well, you have problems with your feet, so we have to give you a new pair of shoes. So they made a special pair of shoes for him. So every month since then, he gets a check for $35 for new shoes. It's still coming.
Yeah.
Since the Korean War. Yeah. So, your stories are not lost on us.
No, and I don't mean to imply that it is. Trust me, I don't.
And I understand. Bob brings up a good point and everything. Can we do things over a period of time? The problem is that we swear an oath, and part of the fiduciary duty that you have is that you have to make sure you can pay for everything. So we will see what we can figure out.
I'm sure you will.
But, when presented with this in the past, we tried to find a path to a solution, which is what we try to do with everything. So I want to let you know that your words are not lost on us.
I appreciate that. I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Appreciate that. You know, let me ask you, I just got to say this because I have to say this. When you think of the years 1966 to 1969, would you know that there was a second Korean War?
During that period of time, I knew there was a conflict. I also knew that my uncle was a second lieutenant, Patrick Gallagher, who graduated as the president of Providence College with 3 of his friends, voluntarily joined the Marines, and he was killed in Vietnam in July of 1967. So that's what I know. That's what I really know about those times is that. And today, those 3 men have a plaque at Providence College honoring them who left and served their country voluntarily. So, but I did know there was another Korean conflict, along the 38th parallel. I don't know the details.
Yeah, okay. I was a trick question. But the only reason I say that is a lot of people don't realize that there was, in fact, another armed conflict. By the way, the United States and South Korea won that conflict, but it got overshadowed by the Vietnam War and got lost in the pages of history. But men did die on that DMZ.
Yes.
I served up there in 1966 in November when it all started. So I remember not only serving in Vietnam, but serving in that Korean DMZ. The biggest difference, it was very, very cold. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, Dan.
I know you have to find the money somewhere. Last year, how much did we give back to the taxpayers?
I think it was $500,000.
The year before that?
Well, we've given back over the last. See, we like to have a policy of if it's the taxpayers' money. I think we've given back almost $2 million. I wish I could say some other people had done that in some other parts of the government and the around there, but we've tried to do the right thing.
Right, I understand.
And it's not that I'm not confident that we can figure this out. My issue is that I can't. I really wish I could predict the future, but I can't. And what's happening right now in the economy scares me, because you go up to the Honda dealership, and there's 10 brand new cars for sale. Part of our revenue comes out of all the brand new cars that people buy, so it scares me. And when people are buying used cars for $30,000 that really are only worth $20,000, we're registering them against a book that says they're only worth $20,000. So there's all these moving pieces that we're worried about. So we don't know if we're going to hit our revenue targets that we set up for next year, because we're dealing with what all of you are dealing with. We don't know. So am I confident that we can do something now? Yeah, I'm confident. Do I think I take a little bit more risk by doing all of it immediately? Sure. Risk that makes me uncomfortable. What Bob brought up, can we phase it over time and do a proper budget? Of course we can. These are all the things that, unfortunately, after 23 years of sitting up here, this is the stuff I think about. People probably think I'm crazy, but these are the things I think about.
I understand that, and I know from looking at these budgets for years, I'm confident that the little bit amount of money that you need to reach that 750 can be found in that budget. I know things are going up. All right, I contributed to the tax. I bought a brand new truck, so I registered it in town, and so
Well,
maybe
thank you.
take some of that
bring
money
your
and
boat,
give
bring
it
your
to the
boat
vets.
too. Register that too.
What's that?
Bring your boat too. Register that too.
No, I got rid of the boat. But anyway, I'm confident that if you look at the budget, and like I said, earlier, I've brought this up about all these open positions in different departments, and there's money that's saved there, and I think you can do the 750, and I think it would be a great thing for our veterans. So please help out the vets.
I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just amplify one thing that you said, which is, we have a new fiscal year to which the budget has already been set, commencing July 1st. And it's not only a question of finding the money in the current fiscal year, it's finding it in the fiscal year that has not commenced.
I understand.
I'm actually more nervous about the next fiscal year than I am about this fiscal year, as I think you are as well.
I understand.
These are some of the things that
Look, if we could take it out of the undesignated fund balance and just do it, I'm sure we would all do it. Yes, Bob?
One more time.
Hey, I remember you from town meeting.
Yeah, I know. So, just for clarification, you know, you refer to me as, you know, the guy that suggested, you know, break it up
The
into
gentleman.
installments. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you. That doesn't happen often. I did suggest that, but what I suggested particularly was 125 this year and 125 next year.
I
Not the
understand.
easy payment plan, not $10 down and $1 a year.
No, I understand.
Okay, all right.
No,
But
completely
still,
understand.
I would like to see the whole thing done at once if you can find your way. I don't mind taking you outside of your comfort zone a little bit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I understand. Okay, anyone else? All right, we've had a lot of comment tonight, so thank you for coming. All right, so we have three choices. We can table this to the next meeting and wait for Counselor Butler to come back. We can vote on it as is in this particular piece here for 625. We can amend the resolution and make it for 625 and for 750 at some future date. And then the next one, there's actually four, would be to amend the resolution to go to 750, with the understanding that we're going to have to not only find the money in this year's budget, next year's budget, and then instead of looking for 118,000, you're looking for $250,000 if you go to 750. You've all heard what I've had to say, so I've said plenty. Yes.
Ready to make a motion? I'd like to make a motion to amend the Resolution 2022-06 to maximize to 750. I figured I'd get it over with, and I promised many people in the room and also many people that were calling and that I've met around the past couple months on this. So I'm trying to fix a wrong that I feel was made by accident, and again, I keep my promise. So that's my motion and amendment.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify so that we have a clean record that that motion is for the all veterans tax credit and the optional veterans tax credit.
Correct.
Thank you.
So Deb, your choices are that you can either, you can second the motion for a vote, you can not second it at all and the motion dies. You can invoke counselor privilege. I'll give you a little bit of a heads up. I'm leaning towards invoking my counselor privilege.
Well, I have another question if somebody could.
Absolutely.
Again, I am not real good when it comes to this stuff, so that's why I had asked how this whole thing worked. So forgive me for being really ignorant. So there are three different exemptions, correct? Each at different rates? Or all the same 750? Or is this just for one specific? I guess I'm confused as to what's actually happening with this. And I'm sorry for being so ignorant with it, but
There's been a lot of conversation. I mean, it is confusing.
I'm lost. So I want to understand. And I am leaning towards, you know, like you're saying, have a little bit more time. But I kind of agree with Joe, but I'd like to understand the whole picture a little bit better. So if somebody could just break it down for me. I know we have three, what each one is at, and, you know, are those ones going to go up as well?
No,
Or they
no.
just went up, or?
We're talking, yes, we're talking, there are multiple veterans tax credits. There is the disabled veterans tax credit. That's not at issue here today. No
Okay, so
action is
that's
being
off the
taken on that.
table.
There is the all veterans tax credit and the optional veterans tax credit. Those two are before you for consideration. They're both currently set at $500, and the proposal that's on the table is to go to $750.
Okay, so the one that isn't on the table, was that just recently updated, or is that going to have to be updated relatively soon as well?
I don't have the history on the disabled veterans exemption. My understanding is that it was increased in the somewhat recent past, but I would have to get you that information.
Okay, okay. They wanted to talk, can they?
It's still a public hearing.
Okay.
I'm
willing to spend what time we need to spend.
So the disabled veterans tax credit was increased a couple of years ago. There has been no state legislation on it, and it is not slated to increase at any point in the near future.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying that for me. Appreciate it. All right, so, and do we have a consensus that we feel comfortable that we can find this 750 or no?
Well, see, this is my issue, is if we're going to 750, I want to know where the $238,000 is coming from. Right now, he says he has 118,000. He hasn't told me he has 238,000
Okay.
or 36,000. I mean, so I want to know where that's going to come from before I go to 750.
Maybe salt? We didn't have any storms this year, salt?
Listen,
I mean, we can go pick a bunch of them, probably.
So it's a bottom line budget. I can tell you that we are projecting a surplus at this point for this fiscal year, and that surplus would be sufficient to cover the $250,000 that would be required for this fiscal year.
I want to know where the $250,000 coming from next year. That's what I'm looking for.
And I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm struggling with that one as well.
So folks, the reason why I'm asking these questions is we sat here through a budget here in this room, and I kept asking them how much more money they need to be able to perform the services of the town. I said, my prediction is that gasoline's going to $5 a gallon. We were at, high twos at that point, and everybody told me, we don't need more money for that. I said, well, someday I'm going to come back and tell you you were wrong. So our fiscal year starts July 1st. So what I want to make sure is that he may have the money right now for the 750, but what I want to find out from him is does he have the money next year to give you the same tax credit, or do I need to cut services? Do we need to eliminate jobs? Or do we need to not buy something that we were supposed to buy for services? That's what I want to find out from the town manager. Yes, Christine?
Do you have a prediction of how much money you're going to have left over on June 30th of this year?
We do have a prediction. We have enough money to cover it. What I don't know is do I have enough money next year?
No, I'm asking, do you have a prediction of how much money you're going to have left over at June 30th of this year from the town budget?
I do. I don't have the number with me. It is more than sufficient to cover the $250,000 in this year.
So you're saying when we normally have all this money that goes into the unfunded, that you're saying that it's only going to, so it would be more than 250,000?
Yes.
Okay. Why can't you take, and maybe, I don't know, maybe it's not legal, but why can't you take some of your unfunded money from this year and put it in a bucket towards next year?
Because it's not legal. We actually have to go to Superior Court in order to take money out of the undesignated fund balance to bring it into revenue.
That's right, because
I think the veterans are worth it.
Well, then, please find me a judge that would agree with you.
I think you could. You just have to get one that's served.
Yes, sir. So folks, understand, we're not saying we're not going to do something, we're just trying to figure out how to do it. Sir.
My name is John Perez.
Hi, John Perez.
Wonderful lady is my wife.
That lovely lady there?
Yeah, absolutely.
You should be very proud of her. She comes up and
I
speaks
am.
her mind and says,
And I see all the
and
work
does
that
her
she
research.
to make sure when she says something, it's true. I have a possible suggestion, and I'm going to give you my
Sure,
example.
open to suggestions, sir.
I was in the military from 59 to 63. I went in as a healthy 18-year-old, and I came out when I was 22, perfectly healthy. I was fortunate that I did not have to be in combat. I'm lucky. Why not? When I came to this town, only people who had served in combat were getting the benefit, I believe.
Correct. And then they changed the law.
As far as I am concerned, give it to these guys that put their life on the line. I don't want any more of a benefit. I'm thankful for what you're giving me, but give it to those guys.
I understand.
They deserve it.
Agreed.
And if I had a vote on it, I would say, don't give me another penny.
Thank you, sir.
Give it to them.
Appreciate it. So folks, what I'm saying is, and whether the council, will decide whether they agree with me or not is that I'd like to know where the $236,000 is going to come from in next year's budget. And that's the question I have that we don't have an answer to yet. At least that's where I'm at. Hold on, Bob. We got one more. Go ahead, Ed.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood. Have
you
we
speak up,
determined
Ann?
Where the 13,
Ann, can you speak up? We can't hear you.
can you, have you looked at where the 13% increase from waste management will come also?
I understand that. That's something I also have to look at.
That's what I
Or
was
we
wondering.
have to look at, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
It's not that I don't think this is a good idea. It's not that I don't want to
I
honor our
know,
veterans.
nobody does, but we have other increases that are, I just see in the packet today that are coming up also.
I understand.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Robert LeBrew, 76 Hall Road. You're going to remember that, I guess. Said it enough times. I understand, and I knew that anyway. You can't take, 1 year's money and bring it to the next year. I get it.
Right.
But you have money left in the undesignated fund balance every year. You don't spend it out.
Yeah, so we have, I can't remember the number exactly, but I think we have $6 million is
Right.
about what we have. So here's the thing, is we have to, it's an emergency fund.
Oh, I understand,
So-
and I understand to get a good bond rate, you have to have a healthy rainy day fund.
Yeah, so there's only two things we can do with the money. So there's two things we can do with it without going to court. In December, we can decide whether or not we want to regulate the tax bill. And that's during the time in which we look at how much money we have in the fund and say, you know what, this belongs to the taxpayers, let's send some money back. So that lowers the tax rate. The other thing we can do with it is that we can look at a future project and say, we'll put this on the ballot, it's the taxpayers' money, they can decide whether or not they want to spend their savings account money on this project. The third thing is that if we want money out of it, we've got to go to Superior Court and the judge has to release the money for a hardship. And those are the only three reasons we can touch it. Unlike, for example, you'll see tomorrow night that the schools are going to take money out of their undesignated fund balance. They're allowed to do it and use it for things without going to the voters. We're not. So those are the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could write the check right now, we'd do it.
Oh, I understand. I know you would. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, look, I mean, this is a very special circumstance. We, unfortunately, this is my 12th year as a counselor, and every year we have a surplus pretty much, and we put money into the undesignated fund balance. With that surplus, for whatever reason, whether we're lucky that insurance doesn't cost as much or we don't fund the positions. So to me, I look at this and say, that money before it goes into that big fund that we have, which we have to maintain, I understand a certain amount undesignated fund balance. Before it goes into that fund, what would be a special circumstance and what would be a special, expenditure before it goes in there, and this is one of those. So that's kind of why I think that to your concern, Mr. Chairman, that we need to find the money. I think we're going to have that, not only this year, as the town manager already alluded to, but I feel like it will also happen in the next year. And, look, I mean, when we come up with budgeting, next year, around September, August, September, we start talking about it. We just have to keep these things in mind, that these are things that, should have been done and need to continue to be done. And we should make this a high priority every time we can. So just as a note, because again, this was, we're trying to right a wrong here a little bit, in my opinion. So I want to get this done and taken care of and then move forward. So, thank you.
This is like a crazy option, but just going on what John was saying, is it possible to take one to 625 and the other one to the 7? You can't do that.
No, they're tied,
They're tied together? Okay.
They have to be the same amount.
I was just thinking, and then the other one could have caught up next year, which would have gave us a little bit of, do you know what I'm saying? All right, never mind. Strike that.
So,
We need to either second it or table it.
So there's motion on the floor. Public comment is now closed.
I guess I'm going to back Joe and second it.
I'll call for a vote.
So it's for $750 for amended. You're gonna find $236,000 in next year's budget?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a crystal ball. I am concerned, as you are, about the economic conditions that we're seeing here. It is my job to give sound advice to the town council and to the public. I agree with what has been said, that yes, it is likely, based on history, that we will be able to find $250,000 in a budget of our size based on history. But I am not going to sit here and predict that that will happen every year in perpetuity. You shouldn't expect it to, and in all likelihood, it will not at some point. And if we're wrong, we may have a problem.
Okay. So, before I call for the vote, I want you all to remember that at some point, I said to somebody earlier today, put this statement in an envelope and open it up a year from now. That, we did the right thing. The veterans deserve it. Joe's done a really good job of representing the veterans and pushing for this. But at some point when there's a service that we, are going to be delinquent in, it's because we did the right thing. So I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes in the affirmative. Motion carries.
Mr. Never mind.
Okay?
Thank you, fellow councilors.
You're welcome. I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Public hearing is now closed. Just for clarification purposes, the vote was as amended, Resolution 2022-06, the Veterans Tax Credit Policy, which was amended to $750. We voted on the total ordinance, not the amendment. The only amendment was made was the increase from 625 to 750. New business, order 2022-06, an order relative to the distribution of fire equipment capital reserves. Chief? So Chief, remember, is this about for turnout gear?
It is, Mr. Chairman.
Remember back about 10 years ago, there was the people who were going to get the turnout gear that was 6 years old? That was the okay turnout gear. We were going to buy new gear. We were going to decide who got the old gear.
Absolutely.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
That was at our last town meeting.
Yep.
And we were going to decide which firefighters got the okay gear and which got the good gear.
Which one did you like best?
We don't do that anymore, right?
No, we do not do
good
that
to know.
anymore. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this resolution is for is, as you mentioned, it is for turnout gear. The first one that you see from Bergeron Protective Equipment for the sum of $19,996, that was gear that was ordered last July. And it just came in about 2.5 weeks ago. So what we're finding is the supply chain has been terribly disrupted. So gear that we were seeing in probably 4 to 5 weeks is now taking us almost 9 months. So what we had to do with the personnel that we have coming in is we reached out to two other companies, which was Lakeland Fire Gear and Fire Decks, which we've never done in the past. We've always stuck with Globe because Globe has been, very, very a good provider for us. But all these other vendors now are starting to make gear, I'd say, comparable. I'm not sure, where it's going to go. That's why we are trying it. We're gonna give it a trial basis on seeing how it works out for people, and we may have, different scenarios to go in the future. So what we've been also doing, just so the council knows, is obviously you've seen that we've had a lot of retirements over the past few months, and all of the retirements that we've had for these people that have received, new gear in the past is being redistributed to new firefighters and that are coming into the job. So we might have to, send it out to be altered and, with the name change and everything like that, but we are doing everything that we possibly can to utilize the gear that we have in stock. We cannot keep new gear in stock for the simple reason that, you don't know what size the firefighters are going to come in at, and the gear starts aging the day that it is taken off the shelf. And according to the NFPA guidelines, the gear is good for 10 years. So each one of our firefighters is equipped with 2 sets of gear for the simple reason that, if they have a call that they go out and the gear gets dirty, that they have a gear to come back and change into upon their return to the station. What we've done over the past couple of years with the help of Lieutenant Hallowell is he's now taken that gear for somebody that, for instance, had 2 sets of gear in the same year. He's kind of basically broke that out a little bit now, so it's alternating. So you might have this set of gear that might be up in 2023, but your next set of gear is good until 2028. So we're crossing that bridge as we get there as well. I mean, what we've had to do over the last couple of years now as well for new firefighters that are coming in, just because of how long it's taken to get this gear, is we're actually renting gear. So we rent it from a vendor that unfortunately is, I'd say fairly pricey, but we have no other alternative to do so. Gear over the last 3 years has increased almost 60%. So a set of gear that we used to get 4 years ago for $2,500 is now close to $4,300. All of this, and why I'm asking for this out of the capital account is this is a line that was designed in my budget under the safety line that was set to buy 10 sets of gear each year for the sum of $2,500. But with being in default for the last at least 9 years, that price is, or that line item has not increased. So we have no other alternative other than to take this out of the capital account because of some of the other obligations that we have for the department's safety account. Can I answer any questions?
Any questions? I'll accept the motion to approve Order 2022-07.
So moved, Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. Thank you, Chief.
Nice work, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. I have pieces of paper here.
07?
Yeah, I have too many pieces of paper here at the moment. Order 2207, order relative to maintenance trusts for various projects. Dave?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I come before you tonight to request a expenditure out of the Maintenance Trust Fund for an issue we had here with the Town Hall generator. We had a small leak, actually almost upon my arrival here back in last summer. We had some form of a small leak going on in the generator, but it wasn't quite yet determined. By fall, the company that maintains it for us did, in fact, notify us that they've found it and provided me a quote to repair and/or replace the entire radiator on the generator for $6,612.78. And after some discussion, just thinking outside the box, hey, can we take care of this in-house? Can we utilize our own forces and our own talent? We had some discussion with the staff. I mean, a radiator and a generator is pretty much the same as a radiator in any of the large equipment that we service and whatnot. So we looked at it, we analyzed it, and we decided to take on the task ourselves and remove the, take it offline, remove it, and send it out to a company that could make the necessary repairs to that existing radiator and then reinstall it ourselves, saving some significant money to the tune of over $4,000. So the request to pay this bill is $2,514.35. Any questions?
Nicely done.
Yeah, great job, $4,000 savings, great job. This is the power-up generator service would have charged us $6,600?
Correct. There are a vendor that services it, and in the fall, they did the PM, late winter, if you will. And the leak got enough to the point that we knew that something was where it was.
Yeah, Mike only has to find 232,000 now.
Penny saved is a penny earned, so now it's only 246,000, right? So 250?
In fairness, we record it, we repaired the leak, we record the existing radiator and put it back in. We didn't just say, go ahead and buy us a new one. But, considering the age of the generator and everything else, it's probably the better route to go than start replacing part after part after part. At
That's
some
true.
point, we want to consider just replacing the generator in total, but
That's what I
I know
was
how
just
we are about generators in town, so we went outside the box thinking on this one.
Fantastic. I'll accept an order to, accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very
Dave.
much.
All right, approval of minutes. I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes from April 18th, 2022, as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes affirmative. I'll accept a motion to appoint John Wilson as a full-time member to the Senior Resource Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson, please see the clerk and be sworn in. Liaison reports. Anybody have anything new for liaison reports?
Yep. So I attended the Senior Resource Committee meeting and really trying to get some momentum with that committee. I think there's some fresh attitudes and some real push to get some things done. So I was really, really happy to see a bunch of new faces and kind of a lot more, I guess, a lot more energy and people wanting to push things forward. And also, I discussed with the town manager getting the members of the police and fire back in there. And I think, look, I mean, this is nobody's fault, really. What it is that COVID came in and redefined our worlds, and now we're just kind of getting back to the way things used to be. And even I saw the school committee members going to be starting to come back on, and that's a good thing. So that's my report.
Anyone else?
Yep.
Yes?
Well, I have two. One is that the Energy Committee is having Jessica from the state come down and talk on May 19th at 7 p.m. about electric cars and charging stations and how this can help with economic development for some of our businesses, and how this will come at no cost to the business and the taxpayer, and could bring in some revenues for the town. The other thing that I had to talk to is that this Saturday, I went to a Ukraine fundraiser on the town common, and the woman who was one of the 4 women who created this new organization is from Londonderry, and she wanted me to say that she was very thankful to Mr. Malaguti and to Kirby for all their help and allowing them to use the bandstand. And they wanted to let anyone know who wanted to get involved that they can go to dubroinc.org or their Facebook page, Dubro, and Dubro means, in Ukraine, kindness. And so if anybody wants to help them out, it was a great event to listen to Ukrainian music and hear some stories. One of the people there had gone over to Poland and had been talking to some of the refugees there, and the sad part is they're not going to have a home to go home to. So it's really, really very sad, and it's such a passionate culture. They had artists there and food, and it was really nice. So I just wanted people to know that, thank you, Mike, for letting them, and Kirby, for letting them use our town common for that event. That was pretty good attendance.
Thank you for saying it.
Yeah.
Happy to help.
Actually, one more comment, real quick. So I neglected to mention at the last town council meeting when I reported my visit to the Leach Library as part of my liaison responsibility, that they did change the hours, and I thought it would be a good public announcement. And thank you for putting this, Mike, in the packet to remind us that as of May 2nd, the library now is open Monday through Thursday, 9 to 8, and Friday through Saturday, 9 to 5, and it's closed Sunday. As part of getting back to the full hours, so that's really good news. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate enough to take a tour with the new director, Aaron Matlin, and the place was full of kids and energy, which was just really great to see.
Amazing. Yep. Thank you.
All right, there was a budget committee meeting that was held on Thursday, April 28th. They reviewed the process improvements regarding the budget review process. They also discussed their goals and objectives of the committee. Additionally, they did review all individual election warrant article results for this last March election. They also reviewed how the budget committee voted and discussed those individual results. Third, they went over and they did an overview and of the article, the right to know RSA 91A. And lastly, they just had their liaison reports. And that is it for the budget committee.
All right. I ran into the airport director up at the taco thing on Thursday night up in Manchester. We had a nice chat. Ted's a great guy. Airport's doing well. And the estimate up there was there were about 15,000 people, so I guess COVID's over, at least at taco night. And that's all I got for right now. So, town manager report.
Try to keep this quick, Mr. Chairman. I've got some information in there. I'm happy to take any questions on it. I'll just do the highlights, given the late hour. We do have a couple of personnel changes. Colleen Mayu, who's ably served as the town planner, she's moving on, has taken a role with the federal government. It's going to be hard to fill her shoes, and I will miss her as a coworker. We had firefighter, paramedic Ed Daniels, and police officer Matt LeCaire retire as well during the last couple of weeks. I mentioned the waste management request for an increase to the trash and recycling budget. I don't want to say too much about that, other than that it is under review with the assistance of our attorney to try to determine what an appropriate response is. I'm putting it out there on your radar screen at the earliest appropriate moment. And then finally, I've got the Lions notice of lease termination in there. I think I pretty thoroughly summarized where we stand with the Lions, but I did want to put that on your radar screen and the public's radar screen as well.
And Mike, just because they don't have a place to go right now, is it possible that we could look at them using the senior center at night, since the seniors aren't there at night? At least they would have a place to meet and do the stuff that they do, especially, coming up pretty soon, that they've got to get stuff prepared. At least they could prepare it there and bring it down for Old Home Day and stuff like that. There's a kitchen, a freezer. I'm just trying to think of things like, and when they're doing their baskets for the holidays,
Right.
they're going to need a place to be able to sort. And if that building is empty, at certain times, it might be a good use of that building for us to allow them to be able to continue to do their good services and deeds in the community while this is getting itself sorted out.
I think it's a good idea. I'm happy to talk to the senior center director and the person who's involved in renting that space out to make sure that can be accomplished, but it seems like a good idea to me.
All right, thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Mr. Chair, just a few things I wanted to mention. So Leadership Londonderry, applications are still open till the middle of May, so please go on our website. They're right on the front page. There's a link. Second thing is I did want to just highlight a few PFAS and water-related items, since I know the public is always interested, and to assure you all that we continue to work on it. So the state, the PFAS rebate program, which is now being run by the state, there will be some changes to that. It has not yet launched, but that's because they were waiting to go before the commission to ask to increase the amount that would be available per resident from $1,500 to $5,000 for installation of a point of use or point of entry treatment system. There will also be available a one-time rebate of up to $10,000 to assist eligible residential well users to connect to an existing public water system. Now, I know we don't have one of those yet, but I just wanted to let people know that that will be coming. They have not, as I've said, launched the program. As my understanding, it was just approved today to be able to increase these amounts, so hopefully that will happen soon. Second thing is that there is a new agreement with Saint-Gobain and the state for permanent alternate water provision by Saint-Gobain to those in the consent decree area only. Okay, that's everything. That's the only area that is covered by this agreement. It was already put out publicly that for 40% of the properties in that area, what the solutions were going to be for specific addresses. Essentially, those were folks who were already located close to a water line where they could provide connection. So those were the easy ones, if you will, to address. The remaining households are still awaiting information as to what is going to be the solution for each of them. Saint-Gobain had to provide a work plan by April 30th. To DES. They have done so. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the details yet. They're still under review. So just let folks know information will be coming, and each affected residential user is going, or residential owner is going to get a letter about this. So just watch your mailboxes, I guess, if you're in the consent decree area. Okay, a couple more things related to water. So if you'll recall, DES was funding a feasibility study for the town of Londonderry. We had finished phase 1. Phase 2, the results will soon be announced to us. So we are awaiting that. We have a meeting staff set up with DES staff sometime in the next couple weeks to discuss the results of the feasibility study. That will then provide the basis for us to move to the next phase, which is the cost of service study, for which we got the $50,000 planning grant that you all accepted a few weeks ago, I believe at our last meeting. And then the very last thing is that, as we have said all along, right now we're in a unique situation where there's a lot of money out there for infrastructure, and most specifically water infrastructure. DES knows this, and they are trying to focus that money to regional programs of tremendous viability, is what they're phrasing it. Londonderry is one of them. They know about us. They're well aware. We are in conversations with them all the time. So, there's like, I guess the best way to say it is there's a bucket for us. We don't know what the number is to the bucket yet. The idea is to bring the water source into Londonderry, and then we may have to take it from there. But we are engaged in ongoing conversations, and I just want the community and the council to continue to be aware of that. So I tried to go as quick as I could. Sorry for all that information in a short amount of time.
That's great, thanks for your update.
I would like to address a couple things. I wanted to say thanks to Mike for showing up to the meeting this morning up in Concord. I want to say that Londonderry is very well represented up there. We do get residents that go and speak. And I'm constantly calling Erin and Amy to make sure that we don't fall off the radar and that we're always being thought of by DES when they're doing these projects. The other thing is that the money that you talked about, the $5,000 and $10,000, there will be some additional help for people who may be struggling financially to even get more coverage for them to be accommodated to be able to have clean drinking water. There's, if you look at the bottom, if you saw the press release, there's a piece about waivers, and those waivers are there to help residents who fall into financial critique that will allow them to be able to take advantage of that. But I think these are great steps because they're looking at long-term service. And one of the big issues is the filtration systems and how they're going to handle the filters. Because you can't just throw those filters into a compost, and so that's the big issue. And I don't know if we want to start thinking about that, Dave or Mike. We really have to start thinking about at our dump and stuff, if we're going to supply, like, it would be good to be ahead of it, if we're going to supply an area in which people can bring these filters, vendors and, of the town, people, plumbers that are in the town that are going to service people, as well as people can bring these filters to get these things disposed of in a proper fashion. It may have to have a monthly cost to have it picked up, or a yearly, I'm not sure yet, but it's going to have to be something that, I got a funny feeling through other conversations that I've had up there, that the town is going to kind of be responsible for that. So we would be smart to jump ahead of that and figure out how we're going to handle it.
Can certainly start looking at that, yep.
That was it, sorry.
It's okay.
Anything further? Our next meeting is May 23rd at 7 PM. I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.